embassy in Europe, if approved, if Starmer bows down to Beijing, as these protesters are saying. Behind me you can see nobody wants this.
No depression at borders! We know that we have to stand up to the abuses of China. And what worries me is that we have a government right now that seems to be scared of China.
What are you doing here at the protest? That's an interesting sign you've got there. Clearly you're not a fan of our Prime Minister Keir Starmer. Why is that?
He's kowtowing to the Chinese government, right? A dictator regime.
Robert Jenrick defected to Reform yesterday. He called the Conservative Party and Kemi Badenoch a leader with no backbone. She's obviously shown up here today and done a speech. It's kind of unprecedented to have that sort of flagrant support. What did you think about her speech and her backing this?
I think any party backing our cause, like going against the building of the embassy, I'd say we welcome them.
Why are you here today?
So I'm Tibetan and I'm here to oppose the Chinese mega embassy being built here. Unfortunately, we think the UK government might allow this to happen, and I think it sends the wrong message to people who have been oppressed by the Chinese government, who are still being continuously oppressed in free countries. There are lots of Chinese decisions which are being followed by Chinese police states.
Now, we know that there are plainclothes Chinese policemen potentially in the crowd, so a lot of them want to stay anonymous, which is very understandable. Why are you here today?
Because it's very simple. It's no mega embassy, and it is absolutely unacceptable because this is a very peak area, and I don't think any one of the country they will have choose one of the peak area, prime area, and make it to their one of the I think it's the biggest embassy in Europe. So this is absolutely unacceptable.
This government is engaging with China confidently and pragmatically and challenging them where we need to. Because from
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side, this is Talk.
(3:06). Happy Tuesday, one and all. You're listening to Mark Dolan in for Jeremy Kyle, and breaking this morning, a victory for democracy, a victory for people power, and a victory for Nigel Farage's Reform UK as Sir Keir Starmer performs his 15th U-turn in office, scrapping plans to cancel local elections in May. And of course, it's a big headache for the Prime Minister because he faces Armageddon at the polls in May. Is this the beginning of the end of his premiership? Is this the final nail in the political coffin? Plus, it's not just an embarrassing climb down and another U-turn, but the government will have to pay Reform an estimated £250,000 in legal costs. Where does the PM go from here? Meanwhile, Labour stand accused of a toxic culture of bullying as Starmer's favourite think tank, Labour Together, stand accused of a vicious campaign against journalists trying to find out how they're funded. So much to get through. My priority for the next 4 hours is to get your opinions on the national radio and television airwaves. My phone number is 03444991000. Damien is taking your calls, so book your place on the show. Is this the worst government in history? I don't think that's an exaggeration now. Text the word TALK in your message to 87222 or leave us a voice note. We know you're very busy. You're getting the kids ready for school. You're getting yourself off to work. You're perhaps at the tail end of a night shift. Whatever you're up to, we've got your back. This is the show and the channel for Alarm Clock Britain. Those that put in more than they take out. So it's all about your opinions, and I'm delighted to say you can listen to us on the radio, DAB+, in-app and online. Our figures are through the roof. Record at listening time, and thank you for your support on that one. You can also watch the show. We are massive now as a TV product. All you've got to do is head to YouTube, search Talking Up, We Pop, and Neha is directing our television output this morning. Mark's pressing the buttons, and executive producer Christian Mitchell ruling with an iron whip, which is a look that suits him. As the saying goes, let's talk. So at 5 minutes past 6, let's bring you the front pages. And we'll start with the Daily Mail, and it's the big story of the day. In another major U-turn, humiliated PM has to abandon plans to cancel local elections. Starmer forced to face wrath of voters. Keir Starmer faced new humiliation last night after he was forced by Nigel Farage to abandon controversial plans to cancel elections for millions. It's the 14th or 15th, depending on which newspaper you read, major U-turn of the Prime Minister's torrid time in office, as ministers announced that postponed votes in 30 local elections across the country will now go ahead. And the reason why is because cancelling elections was anti-democratic, it was morally wrong. And here's another thing, here's the kicker, folks, it was illegal! So we've got a government that wants to break the law. Scrap jury trials, even though they've been quite successful for 900 years. Roll out digital ID, which wasn't in the manifesto and no one wants. And cancelling elections. That's before you get to free speech and going to jail for saying something unkind on X or Facebook. Now, the newspaper, Farage forces elections U-turn, triggering next threat to Starmer leadership. Now, let me remind you that the paper is incredibly left-wing, right? This is like a kind of communist sort of post-war Soviet-era newspaper, and even they are now coming down on Labour like a ton of bricks. Basically, they've lost their friends. Even The Guardian have given up. It's quite amusing. Anger as PM abandons plans to delay May elections. The Guardian are done. The Guardian have checked out. They are so over Starmer now. He's got no friends, folks. And the brilliant actor Robert Duvall has passed away. He gave everything. This is a man that said, I love the smell of napalm in the morning. For me, I like a decaf latte, but each to their own. The Sun newspaper, Line of Duty H-bomb, villain ID twist in next series, and also Starmer U-turn number 15. The Times newspaper, the newspaper of record in this country. Starmer's plan to delay elections abandoned. Council vote back on as reform forces U-turn. £250,000, an estimated set of legal costs. I spoke to a lawyer last night. He reckons about £250,000. And let me tell you, Christian, that's a lot of money. Do you know who's going to pay for it? Are the Labour Party going to pay for it, thanks to their union donations? No. It's you and I, the taxpayer. We need to get a cabinet minister on. Can we put a bid in for a cabinet minister and ask them which departmental budget that £250,000 is coming out of? Is that going to be, I don't know, like less plasters in your local hospital or something? Do they still have plasters? Claims that Romeo was a bully were covered up, or Romeo. This is the potentially incoming new cabinet secretary. What is it with Labour and appointments? They only seem to hire wrong-uns, don't they? Or should I say alleged wrong-uns? Be careful, Christian. It's too early to get cancelled. It's 8 minutes past 6. An investigation into bullying claims against the front-runner to become the UK's most senior civil servant found a serious case to answer. This is Dame Antonia Romeo, who was investigated for misappropriation of funds and bullying behaviour when she was Consul General in New York between 2016 and 2017. She was cleared, but there are allegations of a cover-up about that investigation. And here's my problem with the left. They're supposed to be the good people, aren't they? They're morally righteous, they're upstanding. The grown-ups are back in charge. How's that going for you? 15 U-turns, zero economic growth, unemployment back, inflation almost double the Bank of England's target. Grown-ups back in charge. Do me a favour. Daily Telegraph, Starmer U-turns on cancelled elections. I'm going to do more front pages in a moment, but I've got a guest in the studio that's far too compelling to be made sat there in silence. Matt Vickers, Deputy Chairman of the Conservative Party. Lovely to see you.
Good morning, good to see you.
So much to go at. I mean, of course, you're so happy. You're like the cat that's got the cream, because this is more headlines that are of a very negative nature for this government.
Well, it's pathetic but entirely predictable. It's more costly chaos from a government that has completely lost its way. It is, I mean, it's been branded now as zombie government. This is a government that cannot do anything right. 15 U-turns, the family farm tax, U-turn, the winter fuel allowance, U-turn. They've completely lost their way. But the problem is,
do you know what the problem with the U-turns is? That often the damage is done by the time they U-turn.
It costs us a fortune, but the reality is that a lot of these U-turns, you get the headline today, but the detail emerges after. We saw the U-turn on business rates for pubs across the country. It turned out to be worth virtually sod all. And then this...
a few hundred million, right? Won't even touch the sides.
Well, we've heard the council elections are cancelled. What about all these mayoral elections? They were all clued up to go on the same day.
100%. Not
a sniff of those. We'll probably get lost and it'll turn out in a couple of weeks' time that hasn't happened. But you're right. Who's picking up the bill for this? The taxpayer. The people at home who are going out to work early and getting ever and ever less in their pay packets because more and more of it's going out on tax are paying for this absolute mess.
Well, it is a mess, and thank you for your polite language at 10 past 6 in the morning, because I know you feel more strongly about this. You're spitting with rage, and many are. We know that your party got an absolutely almighty kicking in July of 2024, so your party is humble, there is contrition, there is a degree of apology for mistakes that were made. I don't think it was an entirely negative 14-year legacy, of course not.
You know what, lessons learned, mistakes were made. Kemi wasn't at the helm, I wasn't a minister, we've gone away, we've looked at what they got wrong, we've looked at what we got right. There was things that went right, and actually when you look at the contrast, so there's measures you can put in there. You can look at the economy, the fact that growth, inflation's double. You can look at the fact that there are 21% more people unemployed, people without the ability to go to work, get a pay packet, provide for the kids. 21% more people unemployed.
It's in the ballpark of about 1 million human beings that don't have work now in the government of the working people. What is it? The party of working people. And
well, the party of non-working people. If you work, you pay more and more in tax. If you don't work, you get more and more in benefits. And the people at home are picking up the tab. But everything else is going wrong. When you look at police numbers, we are at record levels under the last government. There are less police on the street. People are getting out of prison earlier. We're not spending what we need to spend on defence. Everything is going the wrong way, and we're all paying for it.
Well, listen, we know that the Tories made mistakes, but when Rishi Sunak went to the polls, went to the country, we had 2% inflation, which is the stuff of dreams, and the highest economic growth in the G7. It was, you know, we were doing, you know, on the road to recovery. All that's gone into reverse. What is the problem, do you think? What's gone wrong for this administration?
I think it's the basics. I think if you come into office with no plan, there's never been a plan. All of the things that they've gone on to do or failed to do, there wasn't a direction or something they were going to do, and they've just, in this country, what people want from a government is a state that's on the side of people who work hard and do the right thing. And these guys are anything but that. If you tax anyone to death who dares to go out, work hard, do the right thing, create jobs, if you keep battering these people with more and more tax, funnily enough, they stop coughing up every week, jobs stop getting created, and everybody is worse off for it.
Yeah, I mean, that is the big headache, isn't it? And now we've got these cancelled elections, £250,000, Reform UK having their costs covered by the government, which of course is you, myself and our viewers and listeners.
We all knew that's how it would end. And the other thing about this is there's still question marks, because the reason they've probably thrown this out of the door is that case would have required the government to hand over materials, the things that it's been saying behind closed doors, maybe about the fact that this was entirely politically motivated to save the Labour Party's blushes. That would have been revealed through this. They're now trying to sort of get out of jail with it, you know, hand over some dosh, quietly,
so we're paying really so that this scandal can go away and that there's no further due diligence.
Essentially, we aren't going to get to see the material we might otherwise have seen through this court case.
Well, that's right. So unfortunate things coming to light about the checks and balances and processes leading up to that decision, and then an embarrassing loss in the High Court, which of course, given that our Prime Minister is a former lawyer, would have been crushingly embarrassing and a very bad look. And of course, they've gone right up to the wire with this one, haven't they? So it's obviously a devastating blow for the government, and it is quite the feather in the cap for Nigel Farage this morning.
Well, it's progress. The reality is we were in there voting against it from the start. There are now councils across the country will be running around to fight these elections, to put these elections on. Parties will be going around selecting candidates ready for the fight. A bit of accountability bad at long last. But the other thing is, these council elections, they haven't been put off by a year. Some of these guys should have been fighting elections a year gone. It would have been 2 years down the line that people have avoided. They're still paying the council tax, but they're getting no say in how those services are ran.
Yes, and I think that's of critical importance. Do you regret that your party was not part of this legal action against the government?
Well, the reality is the place to do it was in the... There was votes on this. We voted against it. We opposed it every step of the way. Every opportunity there was a vote, we were in there kicking the thing. I think it's right that we've got the result we've got in the end, one way or the other.
Is it embarrassing, though, that it's Farage that's moved the dial on this, not Kemi?
I don't think essentially that is the case. We turned up to vote against it. I'm not sure if any of Nigel's not bothered to turn up to work that day. It doesn't always happen.
No, but of course,
what's
provoked the U-turn is the expected verdict that this move was illegal.
And there was debate about what could have been done in the Lords on this as well. But I think it's right that we've got the outcome we've got. People will finally get a say on how those council services are run. They're going to get the chance to have a say on how this government is being run. It's the right thing to do.
And have the Tories not cancelled a few elections themselves?
No. So our MPs voted entirely against this. If you look back, it's all on the records. They're in black and white. We voted against it all the way. There was a couple of councils that opposed doing such a thing for whatever reasons they thought was the right thing, but the vast majority of Conservative councils were very happy to get on with these elections and be held to account.
What do you make of Nigel Farage's ability to win these battles? You know, whether it's the debanking scandal, obviously originally he wanted to get Brexit across the line. He's moved the Overton window when it comes to discussions about illegal immigration, legal net migration, net zero, something that Reform UK said a long time ago they were going to scrap that target. Now Kemi, playing catch up, is going to do the same. Do you regret that he seems to be the main sort of leader of the Conservative movement in this country, small c?
I'd completely disagree. So the thing with Conservatives, we're responsible with the nation's finances. This is a party that came into the last general election with £140 billion of unfunded spending commitments. These are the guys who want to rip the cap off that two-child benefit cap and start spending yet more on benefits and welfare. That isn't what people
But don't you want... When was the last time the Tories were ahead of an argument like illegal immigration or net zero?
Well, the thing is, it's easy to do a tweet or a press release. There's lots of lessons to be learned
well,
about what the last government did.
When you're in opposition, it's all you can do. And Nigel was standing in Dover 10 years ago talking about the boats, and people thought he was a crazy man in a barber jacket.
No, I think when it comes to illegal immigration, you can tweet about it, you can be furious about it. Most people are furious about it. You can also accept the mistakes that the last government made. But what Kemi's done, she's gone in there, she's got a real plan, not just a tweet, not an angry press release. She's got a real plan that's considered about why we need to leave the ECHR, how we'll leave the ECHR, how we're going to fund that force that's going to remove those illegal migrants. And actually the one thing that the last government were doing is they were putting through legislation that would have allowed us to detain and deport anyone who arrived in the country illegally. There's a real considered, thought-out plan. It's all good saying what you might want to do, but unless you've got a real factual plan of how you're going to deliver it, you can't. And the big difference between us, the Labour Party reform, is all about the way in which we'll treat the country's finances. We believe in cutting that benefits bill. No ifs, no buts.
Best part of 50 billion, right? You're going to say?
Yeah, well, it's meant to be there as a safety net. It's meant to help people who cannot
It's a lot of potholes, isn't it, 50 billion?
It's a huge amount of potholes, and it's a huge amount of tax paid by those people who are going to work this morning. Horrendous. The money we pay is at record levels of tax. We've got less police. We aren't spending as much on defence as we need to spend. All of the services that we are paying for are not getting any better. We're just paying more for them, because the only thing that's going up is that benefits bill.
Most definitely. Well, we can definitely agree on that. Here's Nigel Farage reacting to the government's decision to U-turn on cancelling local elections.
Well, it was extraordinary. I mean, last year we saw cancellations of elections without any real exceptional reason. This year, up to 30 councils, 4.6 million people denied the vote. In some cases, Norfolk, Suffolk, East and West Sussex, this would have been the second year in a row that people who are paying their council tax would have been denied the chance to vote. So that's why we took them to the High Court. We were due there this Thursday. They've caved, they've collapsed. It's a victory for reform, but more importantly, it's a victory for democracy in this country. We are delighted.
Well, I've got to say that he definitely looks like the cat that's got the cream this morning. Nigel Farage there, having provoked this U-turn by the government. Here's the Community Secretary, Steve Reid, on cancelled elections in the House of Commons, defending the decision in January. Didn't age well, I'm afraid. It aged about as well as Joe Biden in an old pensioners' home. Take a listen.
To those who say we've cancelled all the elections, we haven't. To those who say it's all Labour councils, it isn't. I've asked, I've listened and I've acted. No messing about, no playing politics, just getting on with the job of making local government work better for local people.
I also like, the team have been hard at work doing a little bit of political archaeology on Big Steve Reid, and here he is suggesting that actually voters don't really like elections, you know. They're very annoying. Take a listen.
Voters don't like elections that come mid-term. People voted in Greater Manchester overwhelmingly for Andy Burnham to be their mayor 2 years ago for a 4-year term. He's only halfway through. Under the Labour Party rules, any mayor that wants to seek selection for a parliamentary by-election has to get permission first. On this occasion, the NEC has decided against it because it would inconvenience 2 million people who only voted for their mayor 2 years ago.
Matt, pretty wild stuff. I think it's Labour governments that don't like midterm elections.
I think that might be the case. I think there's a bit, yeah. Was it Steve Reid who was in debt? I don't know if I meant this. Wasn't he in DEFRA at the time of the family farm tax? They seem to just moving from one disaster to the next. He's the guy slapping the farmers with the family farm tax. He's now the guy who can't organise a wee-wee in a brewery with these elections. It's a disaster. And at the end of the day, people are picking up the tab for this, but they're also picking up the tab. Those council tax bills, they're going up and up. Do you remember the nasal knight said to us, not a penny more on council tax? Those council taxes are going up. People haven't had the right to have a say on those councils and how that money's being spent. It's about time we got these elections.
Well, I think a victory for people power, a victory for democracy, a victory for Nigel Farage. Does he now look like a Prime Minister in waiting, having forced the government's hand? Of course, Matt will say it's Kemi, but is this Nigel's victory? Let's take a listen to a voice note from Matt.
Good morning, Mark. Matt from Mornington. Still loading the van up again. Oh, I'd have loved to have been in that office when Starmer got the news that the courts have ruled against the elections, saying it was illegal. Oh, he'd have been effing and jeffing and banging the tabletops, saying he doesn't lose a fight to anyone. Well done on Farage and taking and winning. So, 15 U-turns. He's done more U-turns than Stig off Top Gear. Great show. Speak to you soon. Ta-ra.
Matt, thank you for that and have an excellent day. Mark working very hard, getting ready for a big day of toil and delighted at the restoration of local democracy. Imagine that we've got to fight for that kind of thing. Steve Reid, by the way, has he got to resign? That's next. You're listening to Talk Breakfast 6:22.
That they probably have a trans staff network or an LGBT staff network that's decided that they want to exert some power in the workplace, and this is what they've chosen to do. But for everybody else working there, I don't want to work with people who are coming in work in their fetish gear. And that's what I firmly believe a man in stilettos is doing. He's coming to work in fetish gear.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
You are listening to Talk Breakfast. Mark Dolan in for Jeremy Kyle. 6:25. A victory for common sense, a victory for democracy, a victory for people power, a victory for Nigel Farage, who has provoked a U-turn. And Labour now will not scrap the planned May elections in a number of regions. How about this from Wayne with a voice note? Take it away, Wayne.
Morning, Mark. Great show. Well, I don't know because it ain't started, but I'm going to say that it will be because I know your form. Great victory for reform and also for every citizen in this country. So make the most of it. Everybody in Birmingham, get up and use your vote. Make it count. Good show, Mark. Keep it up.
Wayne, thank you for your kind words and thank you for your message to my viewers and listeners. Bill in Cheshire, good morning, Mark. Starmer's new default response to anything is, I never knew anyone involved with anything at any time. We're going to talk about a potentially very toxic culture within the governing party of this country after it's alleged that Starmer's favourite think tank sought to smear journalists investigating the funding of that think tank, which I think you'll find is their job. How about this from Paul? And he's evoking the sad passing of Robert Duvall, who was famous in Apocalypse Now, I think it was, for saying, I love the smell of napalm in the morning, the movie about the Vietnam War. Well, a great message from Paul, who says, I like the smell of U-turns in the morning. Nice one, Paul. Bill, good morning, Mark. Now Reform has sorted out local elections. Could they sort out the Chagos Islands? Great show. Well, later in the show, we're going to have a look at the legal case for that sovereignty giveaway, and it appears not to be a strong one. Linda, come on, Matt. Honestly, some of the councils that decided to cancel their local elections were Conservative. And Mark in Alchester, is that? Says, good morning, Mark. Matt Vickers, nice chap that he is incorrect, as the Tories did side with Labour in cancelling some elections before this U-turn. Great show. Do you care to defend your position on this one?
It's not the case. There was a vote in the House of Commons on whether they should be allowed to do this. The legislation that enabled them to do this, we voted against it entirely. We turned up to work, which not all MPs do, and we voted against it at every single
But why have
opportunity.
Conservatives at a local level sought to thwart the democratic mandate?
So numerous councils, wasn't it two, had actually officially suggested. The very, 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 very vast majority of Conservative councillors said, let's
Why
get on
didn't
with
Kemi
it.
come down on them like a ton of bricks?
I don't think you can enforce councils to do that. That's who people vote for. But the very, very vast majority of Conservative councils said,
You could suspend their membership of the party?
You could, and you've got to also look at the rationale for why they may or may not have done it in those individual. How many councils is there across the country that went for it? Vast majority of Conservatives went for it. Vast majority of Labour opposed it. The reality is also that some parties didn't have any players in the game for these elections this year and weren't running any of these councils. The big thing is people are going to get a say on the people who run their councils. They're going to get a say on how their council tax is spent. And do you remember, what were those promises that those Reform councillors made last year about council tax? I think numerous Reform councils promised people not that they were going to freeze council tax, they were going to cut their council tax. And you know, this year, not one single Reform council is cutting council tax despite the promises.
There you go. Listen, it's all about accountability, I've got to say. Now, it's interesting with Starmer. What do you think motivated the cancellation of these local elections? Was it because you would have these short-term zombie administrations, it's a waste of public money and everyone's time? Or do you think it was politically motivated?
He is the king of flip-flop, isn't he? U-turn after U-turn after U-turn. But I think on this, actually, the reason he delayed, they argue that it was about restructuring councils. Well, why would you restructure councils when you were due to have elections? You would ensure you did it in the timetable that was allowed. And it wasn't 1 year, it was 2 years. You've got to remember, it wasn't just this May, it was last May. Some of these councils were elected to do 4 years, 5 years, and we're going to end up doing 7 years without ever being held to account for what they're doing with your council taxes. I think the reason that we've got the U-turn today is because he didn't want to have to publish what's gone on and what's been said behind closed doors as to the real motivations for this.
And of course, it reminds me of before the election and do you remember the House of Commons vote on a ceasefire in Gaza? And it was Sir Keir Starmer that personally went to see the Speaker of the House and asked for the Speaker to cancel a proposed amendment on ceasefire. I think it was an SNP bill. And the reason he did it is because he said to the Speaker, because I don't want any of my MPs to be attacked when they leave the House of Commons for not voting in this amendment for a ceasefire. But of course it was convenient because it would have meant a defeat on the part of himself as leader by his own backbenchers.
Well, you saw it with the Mandelson vote. So he appointed this man to the most prestigious diplomatic office that this country has to offer. He then stood at the dispatch box, admitted that he knew that this guy had an ongoing relationship with Epstein, this vile, depraved child sex offender, after he'd been convicted. He stood and admitted that at the dispatch box. He then was going to force his MPs through the lobbies to prevent the vetting and all the documentation, all the knowledge of what he didn't, all the material that would prove what he did and didn't know. He was going to send those MPs through that lobby to oppose its publication. In the end, he wriggled and wriggled, squirreled and squirreled, came back and said, OK, you can have it, you can have it, and go through a committee and approve what's going on. But he was about to do it again. Squirmed his way out of it to avoid being held to account and avoid people seeing everything that had gone on.
Well, I'm delighted to say that Matt Vickers is the Deputy Chairman of the Conservative Party. He joins us live on Talk Breakfast in the studio. Nigel Farage does have undeniable momentum at the moment. This is a huge scalp for him, convincing the government to U-turn on its plan to cancel local elections by deploying the law, no less. And that's a significant moment, of course. Reformer ahead in the polls as well. Matt Vickers, a robust Conservative to his core. If you were to cut him open, blue would come out. But what about turquoise? He's got till May to defect. Is it happening? I'll ask him after this. By the way, quick voice note from Boz. Take it away, Boz.
Travelling Boz here. Absolutely. His 15th U-turn. He might as well do so many U-turns. He goes round the bend, bit like the snake he is. Never mind snake oil salesman. He is the snake. He's got so much oil dripping off him. It's very hard to grip him. He's like an eel. But I tell you what, this man is absolutely against the British people. And the only thing is, you look round that bench he's got, they're all rubbish. If they were a football team, you wouldn't put any of them on the pitch.
Boz, I can't disagree with you. A slippery eel. There's definitely something fishy going on about the government's proposed plan to cancel local elections, which, of course, is now another U-turn, and they will go ahead. So, Matt Vickers, Deputy Chairman of the Conservative Party, is he off to reform? I'll be asking him next.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
6:34, it is Talk Breakfast. Mark Dolan in for Jeremy Kyle. A very, very busy 3.5 hours to come. A victory for democracy, a victory for common sense, a victory for people power, a victory for Nigel Farage's Reform UK as the government are forced into their 15th U-turn of their administration, scrapping plans to cancel local elections in May. This from Dave in Farnborough. Good morning, gents. So in the last 48 hours, we've had to give away or pay £250,000 in legal costs for Reform UK to fight this battle against the government over local elections. No wonder we're skint. Also, did Matt call Starmer nasal nightmare earlier? It was something like that. John says, Mark and Matt, good morning. 4 Tory councils were going to cancel their elections. Kemi should have said none were allowed. Pamela in Bolton. Mark, I really like Matt Vickers, but the Tories cannot take credit for the Labour U-turn on local elections. Reform forced this without a doubt. Well done, Nigel. What do you have to say to that? Pamela's not happy. She likes you, but she's not happy. You're on the naughty step.
Neil, we voted against it at every opportunity. Yeah. And you've got to, in fact, you know what you can give Kemi the credit for? You can give her the credit for the family farm tax fight. It was her who battered the government on this. You can give her the credit for the Mandelson saga. If it was not for her absolutely lancing him at PMQs, we would never have got to the bottom of that. We wouldn't have got that confession about the fact he knew. You can give her the credit for the winter fuel payments. She's worked incredibly hard. She's on fire at the minute. She's fantastic. People should hear her out. But not only is she fighting for all these incredible causes, she'll be doing it responsibly. She knows how she's going to pay for everything she says she's going to offer you. It's always an important thing to hear from a government and a politician.
She's a formidable politician. She's authentic. She's a true Conservative, exactly like you. Therefore, as someone that's confident in and comfortable in their own skin politically, would you not acknowledge that perhaps what the Conservatives should have done is gone all in with reform in this legal action, so that you would have shared the risks, shared the costs and shared the political spoils if you were successful?
I don't know that there was ever an offer there on that front. I'm not sure of any details that that was an offer or a thing.
But perhaps a statement from your formidable boss, Kemi, saying, I've heard that Reform are doing this court case and we back it all the way. I don't remember such a statement.
I'm not sure what was said on that front, but the reality is we're in there every day fighting for the taxpayer.
She could have made a statement. She could have said, I backed it. I'm so happy that Nigel is actually pursuing this through the courts, and I want him to know that he's got our support, and if he loses, we'll share the costs, actually. We'll chip in, because the Tories have got millions. You're rolling in donations at the moment.
No ifs, no buts. We fought every opportunity we had. We fought to have these elections and get on with the job.
And can we get now... Well, first of all, I'm going to ask you in a second when you're off to Reform. First of all, here's Dan with a voice note.
Good morning, Mark. It's Dan from Kent. So we're on number 16, I think it is, of Labour U-turns in 19 months. I mean, Starmer's folded more times than an origami world champion. And to think, if this country was ever in a crisis, is that man capable of leading us out of it? I don't think so. And what has actually Labour given us in 19 months? I can't think of anything positive. And don't say free breakfast clubs, because they're not free. Great show.
I'm very grateful that you've said that. Thank you, Dan. Another thing, can we please, Matt Vickers, stop saying that Labour have lifted 500,000 children out of poverty? Handing cash to families does not equal lifting children out of poverty.
Well, 21% more people out of work. Those people can't afford to support their own children now because they can't live out their aspirations. Like, there are huge consequences to what they're doing with this economy. When you look at the damage that is being done, the people... I mean, companies, the number of you look at insolvency registrations, the number of businesses that are going to the wall is now at the levels it was at during the world economic crash. We were at near record levels of employment under the last government. We can say all the mistakes the last government made, but when it came to the economy, actually people were able to get a job, inflation was under control, things were moving in the right direction, we had growth in our economy, we now have zero growth. In fact, we're retracting. We've got less police on our streets. We were at the top of the G7.
Streets. In January 2024, we were flying.
We were doing, and the thing is, people talk about economies and numbers and things as if they're... These are people's jobs. These are the people who go out there and work hard, do the right thing, put out of work, paying ever more in taxes because the economy is going to the wall. The best people to spend your money is you, not governments.
I also think the Tories need to have some credit for the fact that, or at least some acknowledgement of the small matter of COVID and £500 billion that was spent to react to that pandemic, and the small matter of the invasion of Ukraine, which exploded energy prices, which is why Liz Truss, for her sins, had to subsidise everyone's heating bills, which cost about, what, 40 billion?
Well, I've said it before and I'll say again. 3 things increase your taxes. 1 is wars, 2 is pandemics, 3 is, without a doubt, Labour governments. You're paying more, you're getting less for it. There is no pandemic in sight, it's just going to the wall. The only people getting better off are those people who aren't working.
So, Matt, you've got until May to join Nigel Farage's insurgent political party. When are you off ski? Are you going to do it soon? Do you want to do it this morning, 6:40 on Talk Breakfast?
Are we holding out for 6:45? I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going anywhere. And the reason I'm not going anywhere is for however much my
it's
party...
It's a terrible waste of your talent. You'd be brilliant in government.
However much they might agree with some of the things...
I'm picturing you as Defence Secretary or maybe Education.
However much Reform might agree with some of the things that we're saying. We might agree with some of the things they're saying. On immigration.
The door's been left ajar, folks.
On immigration, but we do it properly. We don't just do a press release or a tweet. We actually have a real considered plan of how we do it, because that's what we've found now. Labour planned to do lots of things, but they didn't have a real plan of how they were going to do it. But there's a big difference between the Conservatives and Reform, Labour and the other lot. We believe in handling the nation's finances responsibly. We don't tell you what we're going to spend. We tell you what we're going to spend, and we tell you how we're going to pay for it. We've already identified £47 billion of savings, but we haven't said we're going to blow it all. Half of that is going to go into paying down the national debt so we can get control of the country's finances. And we are unashamedly on the side of people who do the right thing. Reform and Labour will increase the size of that welfare bill. You will be taxed more to spend more on other people's benefits. They'll start nationalising things left, right and centre. They've all got commitments on how they'll spend your money, but they're not telling you how they'll pay for it. The Conservatives are going to be responsible with your cash. So if you work hard and you do the right thing, you should be voting Conservative.
Well, you can be virtuous and heroic in opposition, but don't you want to improve the lives of my viewers and listeners? And isn't your best bet to join Reform because they're going to win the next general election?
I want to be honest with people. When I stood for council, I didn't tell people I was going to cut council tax.
Honest
and then
in
increase
opposition.
I don't want to go into the next government telling people I'll give them this, that and the other without a plan of how I'm going to pay for it. I also don't think it's right to promise the earth to people who don't work at the cost of the people who work incredibly hard every day and do the right thing.
If I gave you a choice of Prime Minister Keir Starmer or Prime Minister Nigel Farage, which would you take?
I'd take Prime Minister Kemi Badenoch.
He's struggling,
any day. We're going to fight it all the way.
You know, he looked like a rabbit in the headlights when I asked that question. Let's get this man a coffee. His blood pressure's gone through the roof. Here's a voice note from Mike. Take a listen.
Morning, Mark. Great show. Matt is sitting there with some glee in his voice. Loved the U-turn. Number 15, I believe it is. But my question to you, Matt, is this. Considering it's been mostly Reform's ideas, like leaving the ECHR and things like that, what difference does Kemi make? Sure, she talks a good talk sometimes, but really? Great show, boys.
There you go. Listen, the bottom line, Matt, there's a lot of love for you out there. You've got a legion of fans. Almost every text says, I like Matt Vickers, but. The issue is not Matt Vickers, it's your party and its positions on things like the cancelling of local elections and, of course, the legacy of 14 years in power. So what say you?
Well, I think, so you've got to look at the 14 years. Lots of mistakes made. I wasn't a minister. Kemi wasn't running the show. We've now got a woman with a backbone who will make real decisions to ensure that this country works for people who work hard and do the right thing. And then when it comes to immigration, we had to mention there about the ECHR. I could have tweeted 3 years ago, we should leave the ECHR, but unless you've got a plan to deliver it, that's what went wrong with Rwanda. Rwanda actually was the right thing to do. We know that it's right. If you break into this country, if you come in illegally, you shouldn't get to stay. Until that starts happening, the thing is just going to get worse. Actually, it has got worse. Since this Labour government came to office, 50% more people breaking into our country illegally. But it's not good enough to tweet about it, because sometimes if you just tweet about it or you do a press release, you can't pull it off. That's what happened with Rwanda.
Rwanda was a great Tory policy, and it started working before it had even been enacted. The Irish Taoiseach complained about Rwanda because all the migrants were bypassing the UK, heading straight to the Republic of Ireland.
Well, now we know that when you do these things, you actually have to have the nooks and crannies, so everything fixed on it, and that is exactly what Kemi's done with this. We've had the greatest legal minds look at it. We haven't just said we're going to leave the ECHR, yeah, it'll sort everything out. We've got a real plan on how you would do it, why you would do it, and the consequences, allowing us to protect our veterans properly, allowing us to control our borders, and allowing us to run our own judiciary in the interests of law-abiding citizens. It's the right thing to do. We've got a considered plan. We're ready to get on with the job.
A text from Debbie. Good morning, gents. I honestly feel like the country's lost its way. It feels like promises get made but not kept, and ordinary people are the ones paying the price. We need leadership that actually understands what families and workers are dealing with day to day. Keir Starmer is a joke. Big changes are needed. Anyway, to Matt, big night tonight. Up the anchors.
Yeah.
Now, what does that mean?
So Stockton, the mighty Stockton Town, the greatest football team ever, are playing tonight. I don't think I'm going to get back in time for it, unfortunately. But yeah,
is that your childhood team? Or?
That is where we're at. Yeah, Stockton Town.
So Town, that's incredible. Because when I said that, big night tonight, up the anchors, I was worried that I'd be like one of those celebrities on a Cameo where I'm made to say something which is incredibly rude or offensive, but I didn't realise it.
Well, depending on what time I get off the train tonight, I might be there, tinny in hand, in the shed.
That's
Can't
good.
wait.
Do you remember Nigel Farage with his, Cameo?
Yeah,
it's a celebrity website where celebrities will say happy birthday to Bernadette or something, and he said up the Ra.
That's the problem. Some people will say anything or do anything for money.
For money. I will say, given that there's been praise for Nigel, I'm surprised he's still doing those cameos. I think it's very cheap.
Yeah, well, he's got lots
it's not
of other
becoming
interests.
of a prime minister in waiting, is it, to be doing birthday messages for 50 quid a pop?
Well, it's on less reputable broadcasters than this.
You wouldn't do it, would you? You wouldn't do it.
No,
Does Kemi do Cameo?
No, she doesn't.
I doubt she. Mark,
she's a serious politician.
I think it's not professional, is it? Do you think? I don't think he needs the cash. He got over £1 million for I'm a Celebrity. Come on, Nigel. Seriously. But listen, I've got another voice note, and this is Mike. Take it away, Mike. We've done, Mike. You see, it's good that someone knows what's going on. 6:46, it is Talk Breakfast. A fresh political scandal for Labour as Keir Starmer's favourite think tank stands accused of seeking to smear journalists for doing their job. 6:47, this is Talk Breakfast.
Welcome to Down the Local, the show that goes from pub to pub across the country, speaking to the punters about the subjects driving us all nuts at the moment.
That's Rachel Reeves, Rachel Thieves, Rachel McCounts.
I don't really know Meghan Markle. I know Meghan Markle's from Suits, and that's about it.
I don't know about anyone else, and I don't know where this is going. I have 0% beers, and I feel
raising the flag, I think, is symptomatic of its desperation.
Is public transport good value for money?
No, it isn't.
You really don't like speaking to people.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
.49 Talk Breakfast, Mark Dolan in for Jeremy Kyle. It is Tuesday morning. I hope you are well. Whatever you're up to, this is the channel and the show for Alarm Clock Britain. Those that get up in the morning, put a shift in and contribute more than they take out. A massive political development this morning. A victory for common sense, for people power and for Nigel Farage's Reform UK, whose legal action against the government has provoked a U-turn on cancelling local elections in May. It looks likely now to be electoral Armageddon for Starmer. Could that be the beginning of the end of his premiership? Is he done? Has he had his pancake flipped on Shrove Tuesday? Here's a voice note from Big Sean.
Morning, Mark. Sean from Grimsby here. When the Prime Minister decided to cancel these elections, he must have known it was illegal, yet he's done it anyway. I mean, how many more times has he told us, I was a lawyer at the CPS? You know, he bangs on about this every 5 minutes. It's like me coming in the morning and going, oh, I don't know what side of the road to drive on in my wagon today. I'll just wait for somebody to tell me. Fair play to Farage on this one, because he's got this one right. Anyway, Mark, great show. Got to pay for other people's benefit money.
Sean, we salute you. Thank you for a brilliant voice note. And I enjoyed the Starmer impersonation as well. It was uncanny. Who needs Mike Yarwood? Is he still around? God bless him. He was good, wasn't he? Mark, you like Mark? Mark, Engineer Mark, he does a day Medna. Hello, darling. Right. This from Jason in Worthing. Good morning, Mark. We had Teflon Tony. Now we have Slippery Starmer. Nothing ever seems to cross his desk, and he always gets somebody else to take the fall for him. I wouldn't want him beside me on the front line. Well, I think I tend to agree with you there. And a major political headache, which is bubbling away in the background for Sir Keir Starmer, Matt Vickers, is the allegation that Labour Together, which is Keir Starmer's favourite think tank and an organisation that helped him win power, has been seeking to smear journalists investigating the funding of said think tank. What do you make of that?
Well, we say, I mean, Labour Together, these guys are at the heart of government. We've got as Josh Sams, who is now a minister in the Cabinet Office. All of these people, the Labour Together is completely enmeshed, completely stuck to this government. It's the group that got Starmer into office. Yeah. It stinks that journalists who dare to ask questions, who scrutinise what this government is doing, are sniffed around on, who tried to hush with all this stuff. It's just wrong. It's wrong for democracy.
Most definitely.
It's wrong for government. It says something about the moral fibre of the individuals who are running this country today.
I think I can't disagree with you, and it puts paid to the idea that these lefties, Matt, are the good people. I'm so over that now. Why can't you Conservatives, you know, small C Conservatives, Reform, Tory, why can't you own the idea that actually it's the ethical way to go to be a Conservative, that it's the morally right thing to be?
I think you're right. I think it's tough love. Actually, if you create rules and you ensure that everybody plays by the rules, then we get to the right place. If that makes you a nasty person, I mean, I've heard you see
like
my
a country
email
that
inbox.
lives within its means, for example.
Yeah, a country that lives within its means. It doesn't pass down a credit card to the next generation.
That's moral. That's
ethical. It doesn't take money off everybody in order to hand it out to somebody else.
That makes you the good person in my book.
Well, apparently it's evil to stand up for our borders as well, isn't it? If you think that people who break into our country should be deported, apparently you're a heartless, horrible person. No, it's common sense. It's the right thing to do for people who want to get on with life, work hard and do the right thing.
Well, the other issue I've had with, I've got many friends on the left, of course, and including that appear on this show, and they will not accept that, for example, when it comes to illegal immigration, we can all agree that a rape or an assault, a murder, a mugging is completely unacceptable, whoever does it, right? And we've got disgusting, awful people who are British who do those crimes. But they won't accept that it's worse if it's done by somebody that shouldn't be here. What do you think? What's your view on that? In my view, it's what a judge would call an aggravating factor.
Well, we've also seen the disproportionate number of people from certain countries who arrive in this country and commit those crimes at a very different level to the regular population of this country. It's wrong. It needs to be called out. It's this fear of calling something out that's often a fact, like the grooming gangs thing. People scared to say the truth. The end result is that people suffer, people are let down. Some of the most vulnerable people in society suffer as a consequence of this. And those apparatus of the state are unable to carry out their role in upholding the law. It's wrong and it stinks.
And would you accept the principle? Because I cannot, you know, with some of these figures on the left, I cannot get them to accept the principle that it's worse if a crime is committed by someone that shouldn't be here. It is an aggravating factor. It is provably worse.
You arrive in this country, abuse our hospitality, often bringing cultural opinions. You know, you've got people arrive in this country who do not think that women should have the same rights as men, and we're surprised by the consequences. It's entirely unacceptable. It's entirely wrong.
It is pretty wild, isn't it? Let's take a listen to the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, on this investigation into the think tank Labour Together, which, as Matt said, helped him achieve power.
In relation to your second question on Labour Together, there will be a Cabinet Office investigation into the allegations, and quite right to, and so that is already in place. I didn't know anything about this investigation, and it absolutely needs to be looked into, so the Cabinet Office will be establishing the facts.
He didn't know that Peter Mandelson was best mates with Jeffrey Epstein. He was DPP when all the Savile stuff happened. Nothing to do with me, Gov. The brilliant Dan Hodges at the Mail on Sunday said nothing seems to cross his desk, Matt. Has he even got a desk?
Well, perhaps not. He doesn't do much work. Well, didn't he have something about working on a Friday or something?
He doesn't
like
work
to work
Fridays.
out of hours.
No.
He doesn't like to work Fridays.
No,
and
but
we wonder why
that's...
the country is dropping a bit.
Well, no, that's the only time good stuff happens is on a Friday, because he's taking a nap.
Well, you look at the Mandelson, back to the Mandelson thing, actually, there's the Matthew Doyle situation as well. History repeats itself.
Go on, tell us about that.
Behaviour. So
Bring us up to speed.
We had the Peter Mandelson situation where he appointed to the most prestigious diplomatic post this country has control, a guy who he knew, who was deemed in all of this vetting materials to have had a very, very close association, chums, with one of the most evil men who walked the earth.
Yeah.
But then it follows on that Matthew Doyle, who used to be his director of comms, also linked with a child sex offender, was appointed by Keir Starmer to the House of Lords. Pattern of behaviour. For some reason, I mean, I don't know anybody who's a close associate with a paedophile, yet this government seems to have numerous people within it who have close associations with paedophiles.
Well, was it Lisa Nandy, who is in the cabinet, who said that we risk Labour government, this Labour Party, we risk being described as the pedo protectors party. I mean, and that comes from their own ranks.
It absolutely stinks. And these aren't people who made mistakes. These are the sickest people to ever walk the earth. And the idea that anybody thought Mandelson was a good and decent guy. We knew he was a rotter. He'd had to resign from government how many times? With his dodgy loans, dishing out passports. Like, it absolutely stinks. Absolutely stinks.
Meanwhile, the owner of Vauxhall is to restart sales of diesel cars in Britain. Can I tell you, Matt, that my viewers and listeners are so sick to the back teeth of being told 1 minute you've got to buy electric, then you can get diesel, then you can go petrol. No, we're getting rid of that. The car industry is in crisis because they can't plan forward. The government have brought forward the ban on the sale of new petrol and diesel cars. Meanwhile, the EU go the other way and a stay of execution for their car industry.
Introduce a tax on the use of electric vehicles. You can't win with this government. Whatever they tell you one day, they're going to tax you on whatever it might be that you happen to purchase or consume the next day. Anything that moves, anything that shuffles in any way, shape or form, they're going to tax you on it. Rishi told us that at the election, didn't he? He told us what was coming down the line.
He said the Labour will raise your taxes.
Right.
Bookmark this tweet, and it went viral, didn't it? Very sad news today. Robert Duvall is the actor who was in Apocalypse Now, The Godfather. He was in To Kill a Mockingbird. Very talented guy. Lived to about the age of 95. And he was famous for that movie, Apocalypse Now. He said, "I love the smell of napalm in the morning." What kind of movies does Matt Vickers like? What are your favourite movies?
Well, I mean, that guy's a legend, isn't he? He's one of those... The thing with some of these actors is you feel like they're part of your family. You've been on the journey with them. You've seen them play all sorts of parts. What movies have I been to? I'll tell you what I've been watching.
Do you like political thrillers? I bet you do.
I do. I've been catching up on that Traitors thing.
House of Cards, like a documentary about your life, isn't it? You've been watching The Traitors?
I've been watching The Traitors. We had a local guy in it from Eaglescliffe in Stockton. He was in it, and whenever somebody local goes in one of these TV programmes, think, oh, we'll have to give it a watch and see what it's about. It's addictive. It was absolutely fascinating. And I was watching it in real time. Sorry, not in real time. I was watching it on Netflix, which means you can properly binge, have a couple of tinnies, get the pizza, and watch this stuff. It's incredibly fascinating.
Sounds good, doesn't it? By the way, your mate Robert Jenrick is going to be probably announced as Reform's Shadow Chancellor in the next few hours.
Well, he'll have a big job for sorting out their fiscal policies and approach to the
see
economy.
him, he gets that big job. Are you not like a contestant in Bullseye? Come and have a look at what you would have won. Look at that speedboat. Come on, Matt.
So Rob is a mate of mine. I backed him in the leadership election. I think he's sound. I think he's made a mistake.
Well, you're sound as well. We loved having you in the studio. We'll catch up very soon. Matt Vickers, this is Talk Breakfast. More to come.
Hello from Crowborough, where the local residents are enraged with what has happened to their community merely overnight, when just 27 single male asylum seeker illegal migrants were bussed into their military training camp. Behind me are local residents, people from all over the country. Shabana Mahmood has said that this is an effective way of getting rid of those expensive, flashy asylum hotels. But unfortunately, these people are still placed within the community.
Whole town is very afraid because these are unvetted men from countries that are, the government warn us not to go to. I've got an 18-year-old daughter and she gets the bus opposite camp. Do you feel safe for her? No, so that will have to stop. Right. We'll either have to wait with her or take her to wherever she needs to go.
The reason I'm here today is because I live in Crowborough and my family, I've got a wife and children, and just worried about, my wife walking to work and my sons, walking about. Anything can happen, kind of that nowadays, Nigel, what's going on, what's happening in this country. So I'm just concerned and frightened,
There was support from other towns, other communities, because of course Shabana Mahmood has threatened other communities, and she said they're going to open site after site after site. Well, I would hope that if she's going to try and do that, she learns some lessons about the way she's done it in Crowborough, because this is not finished. We are not finished objecting to this plan.
Crowborough says no! Crowborough says no! Crowborough says no!
We would urge her to reconsider, and whatever she does, she needs to talk to the people that she's imposing these things on.
You had a direct line to Keir Starmer and Shabana Mahmood. What would you say to them?
Look after your most vulnerable first. It's your priority to look after your vulnerable.
If they're bringing illegal immigrants into a camp in the dead of night, why are they doing that? They're doing that because it's disingenuous, it's dishonest, it's covert, and they're trying to keep the reality away from the local community of what they're actually doing to us. We've now got to the end of the entrance to the camp, we've got cameras, we've got police drones. It's like a cloud that's come over this community.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
.703, happy Tuesday one and all. You're listening to Mark Dolan in for the brilliant Jeremy Kyle. And breaking this morning, a victory for democracy, a victory for people power, and a massive victory for Nigel Farage's Reform UK, as Sir Keir Starmer performs his 15th U-turn, scrapping plans to cancel local elections in May. So what are the implications? Is this the final nail in the coffin of Keir Starmer's premiership? And does Nigel Farage now look more and more like a Prime Minister in waiting, given the fact that his bold legal action has forced Labour into this U-turn? Is that what leadership looks like? What do you think? Is Farage Britain's Prime Minister in waiting? My phone number is 0344 499 1000. Your reaction to Labour's 15th U-turn in office, scrapping plans to cancel local elections. Text the word TALK in your message to 87222. Leave us a voice note, and as the saying goes, let's talk. So, it's the only show in town. Absolutely massive development. Just days away from a court case that Labour, as a government, would likely lose in its efforts to cancel local elections. They cave at a cost to you and I of a reported £250,000. Labour and this government, rather embarrassingly, have to pay reform's costs. It's an ultimate victory for Nigel Farage, who does seem to win quite a few of his big battles, doesn't he? The debanking scandal, Brexit, scrapping net zero, the boats. Nigel seems to be ahead of every single argument. Does that make him a Prime Minister in waiting? I'm going to take your calls on that shortly. Damien's on the phones this morning. But first, here's a voice note from Kitty.
Hi, Mark. Kitty from Kent here. Just wanted to say regarding the latest U-turn, why should the taxpayer pay for this? Because we could all see as we went out to work every day what a muck-up it was and how anti-democratic it was. It was a vicious, determined and deliberate act on Keir Starmer to deny democracy, to stop even further humiliation for reform-winning seats that Labour currently held. He should pay for it. He should personally pay for it. There should not be a bill to the taxpayer because it was an error, a deliberate error. I don't think we should pay.
Well, I agree with you, Kitty, and it was a politically motivated action by the Prime Minister to cancel these local elections, because you've got to always look at the consequences. The consequences of cancelling those elections is less political embarrassment for the Prime Minister. Always follow the incentives. Reacting live in the studio to this massive breaking story is Simon Danchuk, former Labour MP and now Reform UK defector. Good morning, Simon.
Good morning, good to be with you.
Well, this is a massive victory for Nigel Farage. Does he look like a Prime Minister in waiting?
It certainly improves his credibility, there's no doubt about it. We are days away from the Gorton and Denton by-election, parliamentary by-election, a three-way fight between Labour, Reform and the Greens. And what does Starmer do? He hands this on a plate to Nigel Farage. I mean, this makes Nigel Farage look like the defender of democracy, doesn't it? He's took on the government, challenged the government, rightly so, and he's won. And it's a great, it's on the front page of every newspaper. So from Starmer's perspective, it's a disaster.
Nigel Farage has this ability to really move the dial on issues. I mean, do you remember the complete sort of scandal of debanking based upon your political views? And the head of NatWest had to resign as a result, given it was demonstrated that it appeared that he was prejudged for his political opinions and debanked as a result. Of course, Brexit happened. He wasn't even in the House of Commons, but he created that movement. The idea of scrapping net zero, ahead of the curve on so many issues. This is a guy that gets things done and wins his battles.
Yes, and he has his finger on the pulse of what the broad British public are thinking.
And it's always unfashionable at the start.
Yes, that's true, isn't it? And had he not kicked up a fuss about this? And you're exactly right. A lot of this is about Starmer wanting to minimise the losses in these local elections that are coming up, because the greater the losses to Reform, the higher chance Starmer has of being got rid of by the Parliamentary Labour Party. So he was trying to reduce the losses in these local elections by having fewer local elections, denying democracy to 4 million people. He's been found wanting. And it's a great success for Nigel Farage, no doubt about it.
And my viewers and listeners are very happy about this because they want their vote. They value democracy.
Yeah, of course they do. And I've been a local councillor, and the idea is some of these councillors would have been in for 7 years. You do a 4-year term as a councillor, and some were nearly doing double terms. I mean, that's totally unacceptable.
With budgets of hundreds of millions of pounds.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and Steve Reid, the Secretary of State responsible for local government, was saying, oh, you know, the zombie elections, we don't need them. And it was him talking it down that actually give the legal sway towards reform.
Well, it's 8 minutes past 7 on Talk Breakfast, and we have some breaking news for you, which is the rate of UK unemployment has risen to 5.2% in the 3 months to December. Now, worth pointing out that this is on the watch of a government that said it would be the government of working people. Well, it appears to be the government of people that haven't got a job, the people that aren't in work, because unemployment has risen to 5.2%. So we've got viewers and listeners to this show battling with inflation. It was Mary that called the show just a couple of weeks ago and said she'd spent almost £8 on a tub of butter in the supermarket. We've got businesses creaking under the weight of taxes and red tape. And now unemployment on the rise. This is a major political headache for the government, isn't it, Simon?
A massive issue, and it means that the taxes that they take are coming down. They're running out of money, aren't they? They're going to end up paying more in benefits because there are more people unemployed, and the tax take is reducing. I mean, it's an absolute disaster, but it's of their own making. Right back to that first budget with Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, putting national insurance up on employers. Employers are just cutting jobs. They've put the national minimum wage up. Again, young people are finding it harder to get jobs because employers are just not employing people. Look at hospitality. It's been hit left, right and centre, you know, from national insurance increases, value-added tax, business rates have gone up dramatically since the pandemic. They are just killing employment.
Well, that's right. I think around 150,000 jobs have already gone in hospitality since this government got to power. And that's devastating because, as you mentioned, it is young people predominantly that benefit from working in hospitality. Why? Because if you leave school or you graduate from college, it's an excellent option to go and pull pints in your local or work in a restaurant, and it gets you in the world of work, gets you paying your taxes, gets you up in the morning. We cannot have a generation of young people that don't get used to the idea of working.
Exactly. This is the first rung. Those jobs in hospitality, the first rung on the ladder of employment for many, many young people.
Work ethic, purpose, self-respect.
Yeah. Totally.
We hear about young people's mental health, don't we? And you've got kids, and we know that they need to be busy and they can't be sat at home, you know, playing computer games and getting depressed.
Exactly right. It's and they have an ambition to get out there and work, but the opportunities just aren't there. So whilst Starmer is expanding the number of people out of work, at the same time we've got illegal immigration has gone up to over 66,000 on this guy's watch. It's the highest it's ever been coming into the country. They're being paid for. They're being spoilt with our taxes. The situation we find ourselves in is just not sustainable, is it?
No, and can you give us an overview as you're an entrepreneur, you're a broadcaster, best-selling author, and you've been a member of Parliament as well. Can you just give us a sense of how devastating unemployment is for communities and for individuals? Why is unemployment such a social ill, do you think?
Oh, well, it just creates a deterioration within the community, doesn't it? You know, people just start, you know, things just get worse, don't they? You know, people aren't spending. I was the MP for Rochdale, a pretty tough constituency. You know, that's had its fair share of knocks in a whole range of different ways. And unemployment, the closure of manufacturing, the closure of shops in the centre of the town, it just gives it, you know, a real deterioration. It's devastating. And this is the route in which we find ourselves under this Labour government.
Most definitely. If you're just joining us at 12 minutes past 7 on Talk Breakfast, breaking news this morning, the UK's unemployment rate hits its highest rate in nearly 5 years, rising to 5.2% in the 3 months to December, showing a further 11,000 people not on the payroll. And obviously the direction of travel doesn't look great for the economy, does it? We've had the Bank of England downgrading our growth prospects as well. I mean, the implications for this government are truly disastrous, and it's ironic because they're a Labour government. Labour governments exist to spend money and to pump money into public services. So they're their own worst enemies, aren't they, with their own policies?
Well, you know, when I joined the Labour Party many, many years ago, it was all in the name, Labour. It used to look after working people. It's a million miles off that now, isn't it? And what they've done to the... In a relatively short time, we're only 18, 19 months into the government, and look where we we are. I mean, it's absolutely devastating.
Is it perhaps a defence of Labour that they inherited an economic mess and actually these metrics would have played out whoever was in charge?
No, I don't think that's a valid point. I think because the statistics show that the economy was improving as the general election was called, so things were on the up. But they managed to take it disastrously in the wrong direction. And it's been Rachel Reeves. Let's be honest about this. I always thought she was a tough, smart politician. She's been found wanted, and her and Starmer are inextricably linked, aren't they? That's how he's found it difficult to get rid of her. Anybody else would have got rid of her, I have to say.
The most devastating double act since the craze, I've got to say. Here's a voice note. Is Nigel Farage a Prime Minister in waiting, given the fact that he's now forced this government U-turn on cancelling elections? Is that what leadership looks like? Take it away, Steve.
Good morning, Mark. This is Steve in Hearts. Yes, I agree with you that this latest victory for Nigel Farage over the hapless Starmer does make him look like a leader in waiting. And I'll tell you something else that makes him look like a leader in waiting, Mark. He's consistent. Every other leader flip-flops on every issue. I'll give you an example. Mrs. Badenoch campaigned for immigration caps to be removed and so was partially responsible for the Boris wave. And now she's against immigration. They just seem to change their minds. Starmer on his 15 or 16 U-turns, Ed Davey doing his backflips off a surfboard, whatever. Mr. Farage is consistent and always has been, and that's why he looks like a leader. And his judgment is great. He's ahead of the issues that the British people care about. Have a good day, mate.
Steve, thank you for that. And I agree with you. I just think, love him or hate him, Farage seems to be, very often, Simon Danchuk, on the right side of an argument. But sometimes you need 6 months or a year for him to be proved right or vindicated, maybe even longer than that. But he gets there in the end.
Yeah, his credibility is on the up, isn't it? And this remaining at about 30% in the opinion polls, they're well ahead of Labour, well ahead of the Conservatives. I think they have a lot of momentum. I think they're going to really, I think they can win the next general election. And at one stage, I would have said it would be a coalition on the right of politics, but I think they can win it in their own right. I really do.
What does this U-turn, the government's 15th U-turn since achieving office, mean for Starmer now? Because he didn't want those elections, did he? Because he would have got a drubbing. Of course, they were going to do badly anyway. Now it's going to be worse. It's going to be a bloodbath, isn't it, in May? What are the implications for Sir Keir Starmer? Is that it now?
I think that's it. I mean, this is the final nail, because what you've also got to remember is that he's had Labour MPs, Labour ministers marched into studios like this to defend the idea of cancelling elections for months, and it's on the 15th time that they've had to do it, you know, because it's the 15th U-turn, so they're having to defend the indefensible, and then they reverse the decision. I mean, he makes his own colleagues look stupid. They're going to get rid of him straight after the local elections. I would put a lot of money on that.
Wow. There you go. Well, look, I will tell you that Simon knows the Labour Party inside out, former Labour MP. He knows how that party operates, the culture of the place, and he says that Starmer is done. And he said he put big money on that, and this is not a man that gambles frivolously. I've been to the races with him. He's very careful. If only. Right, listen, let's get a voice note, not a voice note, forgive me, a clip. This is the Community Secretary, Steve Reed, suggesting that actually the public aren't that fussed about democracy. Take a listen.
Voters don't like elections that come mid-term. People voted in Greater Manchester overwhelmingly for Andy Burnham to be their mayor 2 years ago for a 4-year term. He's only halfway through. Under the Labour Party rules, any mayor that wants to seek selection for a parliamentary by-election has to get permission first. On this occasion, the NEC has decided against it because it would inconvenience 2 million people who only voted for their mayor 2 years ago.
Well, there you go. I mean, that's what it is. Walk the soldiers up the hill, then walk them back down again. Another U-turn. I mean, why have this government done so many U-turns? What does it tell us about Starmer's leadership that they've had to outline a policy, announce it, and then row back? What's going on?
I think some of it relates to what we were talking about earlier about whether you've got your finger on the pulse of public opinion. Blair was very good at that, I think. Farage is very good at that, knowing what the public are thinking and having a vision.
Boris was pretty good on it too.
Absolutely, yeah, good call. And having a vision, knowing where you want to take the government, knowing where you want to take the country. But that doesn't apply to Starmer. So he has no, he has no direction in which he wants to travel. And so he's making random decisions all over the place. Just because he wants power, that's all he's interested in, isn't it? He just wants power for power's sake, and it just doesn't work.
Most definitely. Christian, have we got that voice note from a listener, a female listener, that doesn't want to pay for this legal bill? Are we able to have another listen to that?
Kitty.
This is Kitty. Let's take another listen to Kitty, because it's a very important voice note, if you don't mind.
Hi Mark, Kitty from Kent here. Just wanted to say regarding the latest U-turn, why should the taxpayer pay for this? Because we could all see as we went out to work every day what a muck-up it was and how anti-democratic it was. It was a vicious, determined and deliberate act on Keir Starmer to deny democracy, to stop even further humiliation for reform-winning seats that Labour currently held. He should pay for it. He should personally pay for it. There should not be a bill to the taxpayer because it was an error, a deliberate error. I don't think we should pay.
Kitty, thank you for that. Kitty speaks for many of our viewers and listeners this morning. Why should we pay the bill?
That's a really good point that Kitty makes. And in local government, which is what we're talking about, and I've been a councillor, you can be surcharged for making the wrong financial decision. It happens to Liverpool councillors. So if you make the wrong financial decision as a local elected councillor, you can be surcharged and held responsible and have to pay money into the local authority. And she's arguing that that should be the case here, and it's a valid argument, isn't it? They're making stupid decisions that are all political about themselves, and yet they're not carrying the can. The taxpayer's having to pay for it.
Well, definitely. And I spoke to a leading London lawyer last night, and I asked for an estimate of what we were talking about, because they'd said 6 figures. He said the best part of $250,000 is what we're looking at. Worst case scenario, $350,000. Your money and mine. Thank you, Kitty. A brilliant voice note. More of your feedback to come. Is that it for Starmer now? With this 16th, is it 15th, 16th? I can't keep up, but with yet another U-turn on scrapping the May elections, and with the breaking news that unemployment is at its highest rate in nearly 5 years. Is he done? Is that it? And is Farage a Prime Minister in waiting? Your calls next, 7:20, Talk Breakfast.
Join me, Ian Collins, every weekday from 1.
My 12-year-old. Obviously, he won't be 12 then, he'll be 16, but if he's anything like he is now, he shouldn't be anywhere near an election booth. Do you sympathise with him? Is he the victim of the 24-hour news cycle we just spoke of?
I think his failings are internal. He's useless, incompetent, has no political judgment.
Everything you need to know. All the breaking news right here on Talk.
Weekday afternoons from 1 o'clock. Only at the home of common sense.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
You're listening to Talk Breakfast, 7:24. Mark Dolan with you, in for Jeremy Kyle all of this week. Lovely to have your company. And a political hot mess, a total train wreck for Keir Starmer this morning. So he's had his hand forced on scrapping local elections in May by Nigel Farage. Of course, there was a legal action paid for by Reform UK. They've been successful. The government have caved, and you and I have got to pay that legal bill now, which I've been told will be in the region of £250,000 because of Labour's politically motivated decision to scrap local elections. Truly devastating, but if that wasn't bad enough, there's also a toxic scandal around Keir Starmer's favourite think tank, the think tank that propelled him to power, that's being looked at for some alleged claims that they sought to smear journalists who were simply doing their job, identifying how that organisation was being funded. And we've got breaking news this morning at 7:25, which is that the UK's unemployment rate is at its highest rate in nearly 5 years. Unemployment is up, rising to 5.2% in the 3 months to December. What I want to ask you is, what is your real world experience of the economy? Can you tell me about your experience of, the cost of living, job prospects, friends of yours, family members, your own situation? Tell me about your real economy. My fantastic engineer, Mark, raised a brilliant point. We were just running back in from the loo, and I will tell you that he pointed out French fancies. Are you familiar, Simon Danshot, with a French fancy?
I am indeed.
It's
yeah,
a
very
Mr.
much
Kipling
so.
classic, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
And they're very good. And it's a small little box of cakes. I think you get 6, don't you? And they come in yellow, which is the lemon. They come in pink, which is, I don't know what that is, but it's just pink. Yeah. And then you've got the chocolate.
Yeah.
At £4.05 for a pack of them.
It's outrageous, isn't it?
Right. I mean, that is real world economy, isn't it?
Yeah.
By the way, which colour do you go for in the French fancies?
I would go for the brown.
Yeah, me too, with your chocolate all day long. Look, folks, it is wild, it's crazy, and there are real concerns now about this legal bill of £250,000, reportedly. Why should we pay? Andrew is in Hertfordshire. Good morning, Andrew.
Good morning. How the devil are you? Morning, Simon. Outstanding show this morning.
Thank you, Andrew. Well, we're delighted that you've chipped in. Now, what do you think about all this?
Well, it went wrong when they taxed jobs. A small nail bar, I know, 3 people it employed, they've had to shut and work from home because they cannot afford to run the business anymore. And if you go into your local supermarket, a leg of lamb for a normal family is about £45 out of earned income.
No one's got that money. Who's got 45 quid?
Yeah, it's not 45 quid. Don't talk like a Labour politician. You have to earn 90 to be able to spend 45.
That's a very good point. Can you, Andrew, can you explain that for people that don't have an accountancy brain? Explain what you mean by that. I know what you mean, but explain it.
So, when you have children and they want pocket money, they want a certain amount of money. Let's say...
Andrew cut off in his prime. Well, we'll get Andrew back. Let me explain, which is basically that if you make £100 and 40% of that goes on tax, then you're left with 60. So that means if you want to buy a leg of lamb for 45, well, you'll have to earn the equivalent of 80 or 90 quid to pay for it. What his point is that the money you get from your employers or from your business, half of it goes to Rachel from accounts. We'll get Andrew back, but I mean, he speaks for millions, doesn't he, Simon?
Yeah, absolutely. And he said a tax on jobs, and that's what it's been under this government, isn't it? Rachel Reeves just squeezing not just the public, but businesses as well, having to pay more in business rates, having to pay more in national insurance, increases in the national minimum wage, a tax, as Andrew says, a tax on jobs, and it's just, that's why unemployment's up today.
Why have they done this to themselves? Because it would be abundantly pretty clear that if you waged war on employers, you're going to have unemployment and you're going to have inflation.
Yeah, it's absolutely... Well, the reason she's had to do it is because they won't stop spending money on benefits. That's the basic reason. You've thousands of people coming into the country illegally. That's costing billions a year in hotels, in freebies for illegal immigrants and all the rest of it. Yeah. But then you've also got a big proportion of people on benefits, and that's just been increasing and increasing. And you can't have more on disability benefits as well, you know, because the checks aren't in place that used to be. When we were younger, the government used to check whether you could be on benefits, and now people are just being signed off left, right and centre. There's no checks on whether you're fit for work.
And back in the 80s and 90s, you didn't have GPs handing out mental health discharges like confetti. We didn't have mental health stuff in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah, exactly.
That wasn't an industry.
No, exactly. And nobody's saying that, you know, people don't suffer from mental health, but there are some people who are swinging the lead, as we used to say.
Well, we can't all be mental basket cases now, given that we weren't, I don't know, in the Second World War when German bombs were raining over London in the 1980s, the 90s. Are we all suddenly just a complete emotional wreck? I don't think so.
It's all part of this woke agenda, isn't it? Just accepting what people say, you know. I think there needs to be a lot more challenge going on.
Big Kevin is in North Yorkshire, called Talk Breakfast. Good morning, Kevin.
Morning, how are you doing? It's lovely here at the moment in North Yorkshire, nice bright day.
Well, and I'm glad that you've said that, because the same in London. There's a gorgeous sunrise over the capital. A welcome break from the rain, Kevin. It's been very wet in North Yorkshire this last few weeks, hasn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. We've needed our wellies on, that's for sure.
Non-stop.
I just wanted to ring in and tell you about cost of living, really. I mean, I run a small business, and to get my accounts done, it cost me about £800 in the year. Now they've decided that they want them doing quarterly as well.
Yes.
So not only do you have your annual one, you've got to pay for quarterly, which is about £200. So it's doubled the amount in the year to get it done. And it's just, honestly, they have no concept about how they think it's going to make it easier for them. Bless them. It's going to make it easier for them to in the HMRC to do it. So, you know, regardless of all the costs that we've got to put up with through the year, now we've got this on top of it as well.
Well, you're right. I'm glad you mentioned the fact that HMRC, which of course will be as a result of an instruction from the government, that we're going to file our tax details 4 times a year, not once. And as you say, accountancy costs are going to go up. Plus, Kevin, it's company time, isn't it? It's bureaucracy and it's time spent rather than running your business.
Absolutely. And as I say, the accountants can't do the real checks that they have to do in a quarter. So you've got to have an accounts done, an official accounts done once a year as well. So it's not just a case of breaking it down into 4 and losing the annual accounts. You've actually got to have that on top of it as well. It's just so frustrating.
Kevin, my heart goes out to you. It just feels like an administration at war with its own people, at war with wealth creators. It's just the priorities seem to be wrong. The incentives are perverse. It doesn't pay to risk starting a business. It doesn't pay to get up in the morning and go to work.
And I think this is so much of an indicator that they've never run a business. These people have never had to run a business. They've been government employees all the working lives, and they have no concept whatsoever about the people that support and build this country have to put up with.
Kevin, my heart goes out to you. It's an absolute nightmare, and all I can tell you is keep the faith. The fundamentals of the British economy are strong, and in 2 or 3 years' time there will be the mother of all political, economic, societal and cultural revolutions. That, Kevin, is certainly my hope, and I'll be pushing for it. I don't care who does it, actually, but I want change. I want strong borders. I want to get rid of net zero, because America, India and China are not doing it. And I want to have no more wokery in our public institutions. I don't want chest feeders in the NHS and birthing humans. I want change. I suspect I'm not the only one. Simon, last word on this hot mess that is this government. Where to start?
Oh, well, I mean, Kevin's speaks for every small business in Britain, doesn't he?
Yeah.
It's all the on costs, you know, and it's coming from a Labour government, I'm ashamed to say. Starmer's finished, there's no doubt about that. The nail in the coffin, it's all over the front papers today, front of the papers today. 15th U-turn. I mean, he's not fit for government.
No, most definitely. A man ill-suited to being Prime Minister.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not his thing at all.
And we thought he was going to be like, you know, maybe at worst he would be a sort of a pen-pushing bureaucrat, you know, a sort of technocratic Prime Minister. But he can't even do that.
No, he's not what Britain needs, is he, by any stretch of the imagination? He's been a complete disaster. And now we're prepared to give him the benefit of the doubt when he came in. Let's see how he performs, let's see. But he's the most unpopular Prime Minister because he's the worst Prime Minister in living memory.
Yikes, a damning verdict from a man that was once very passionate about the Labour cause. Simon Danchuk, great to have you in the studio. Please come back and see us soon. One of my favourite political commentators, former Labour MP, now Reform UK defector. Breaking news, UK unemployment hits its highest rate in nearly 5 years at 5.2%. Things are going in the wrong direction. So much more to come. This is Talk Breakfast.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
7:36. Happy Tuesday, one and all. I hope you're having a good morning. Breaking news. UK unemployment has hit its highest rate in nearly 5 years, rising to 5.2%. The economy, I've got to tell you, folks, is in free fall. We've got sticky inflation, which is almost double the Bank of England's target, which is a disaster for everybody. It's a tax on industry, it's a tax on ordinary people, plus unemployment on the rise. Government borrowing's through the roof. It's actually higher than it was after Liz Truss's mini budget, and growth is through the floor. And please don't give me this business about 0.1%. That is the overall growth number per head, per viewer and listener to this show. We are in recession. And it's all thanks to the policies of this government. Where do we go from here? And that, by the way, is before we get to the humiliating U-turn, the 15th or 16th, depending on which newspaper you read, of this government, in regard to local elections in May. A massive U-turn given pressure from Reform UK and Legal Action. And that's meant that the government have changed their mind. There will be elections. It will be a bloodbath. And Simon Danchuk, former Labour MP, has just told me on this programme that Starmer is finished. He is over. That is it. Problem is, will his replacement be worse? Here's a voice note from Kevin on the local elections.
Morning, Mark. Kevin in Sheffield, on my way to work. Fantastic decision yesterday to allow local elections. It should never have had to, reform should never have had to take legal action. Utterly ridiculous. Only dictators cancel elections. We've had 17 months of dictatorial government, and it really felt like a little victory for the ordinary man and woman in the street. They're going to get their chance to vote, which should never have really been taken away. So fantastic for reform, fantastic for democracy. Now people need to get out there and vote.
They do indeed. Use your power. Kevin, thank you for an excellent voice note. A major royal development. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor should have his succession rights revoked, so he is no longer in line to the throne, says a leading UK MP. Quite spectacularly, even though Andrew is no longer the Duke of York, he's no longer HRH, he's no longer Prince Andrew, he no longer has the membership of the Order of the Garter, he remains 8th in line to the throne. Does the King need to look at this? Who better to ask than the man whose book, entitled The Rise and Fall of the House of York, was the beginning of the end for Andrew. Andrew Lowney. Good morning, Andrew.
Good morning.
It will shock many of my viewers and listeners that Andrew remains in line to the throne.
Yes, I mean, it's very difficult to remove it. He has to get permission, I think, of members of the Commonwealth. I think it's very unlikely that that case will happen. So it seems to me a slight distraction. I think the focus should be on the police now bringing charges against him for sex trafficking and for misconduct in public office. It's very clear that he has committed this crime, I think. They're investigating Mandelson, so why not Andrew? I think that's a much more important focus. And also a parliamentary committee to look at his time as a trade envoy, because he was enabled and protected by a whole host of people, from former heads of UKTI and former foreign secretaries through to his own staff. And I think the other question is, what did the palace know? When did they know it? And what did they do about it? They claim they're cooperating with police, but all the information I'm getting is that they have actually tried to suppress the story.
So are you implying that the palace, the firm themselves, led by King Charles, may be responsible for a cover-up in relation to Andrew's behaviour?
Absolutely. Journalists who raised the story over the years the stories were denied. Then they would have legal action. Then there were strong-arm tactics, refusing to give access to the royal family for interviews. I know scores of people who complained and were sent away with a flea in their ear. And so I think, that's, if they want to cooperate, then I think they have to make that very clear. I mean, I've seen, for example, one of the policemen at Northgate, Paul Page, has had letters reminding him of his obligations of confidentiality. Well, it's these people who could actually produce the evidence to show whether, for example, Andrew came back to Buckingham Palace the night that Giuffre claimed to have seen him or not. But I think there's a big case here. Ambassadors clearly were allowing Andrew to operate on his own behalf on these trade trips with Jeffrey Epstein, David Rowland, etc. And I think they need to be held to account. I mean, this is a huge, huge cover-up, and it's only going to get bigger.
And if this cover-up had happened within the palace, would that have been on the watch of King Charles or the late Queen Elizabeth II, or both?
Both. And I think, there are big questions about actually who contributed to the hush money for Virginia Giuffre. The King has denied it. My information and that from other newspapers is that, in fact, he contributed. So this is all part of trying to shut this story down.
Is it also your view, therefore, by definition, if you allege there was a cover-up on the part of the palace, that they knew what Andrew was like and what he was up to?
Absolutely. And I mean, they've known for years. I mean, he has been a problem since he was a child.
Well, did they know for years that he was a little bit libidinous man that enjoyed the company of women? Because that might be a reasonable defence, that he was the aforementioned Randy Andy. Are you suggesting that what they knew went beyond the fact that he was a playboy?
Oh, yes. I mean, I've got stories of him being allowed by a housemistress at Gordonston after he left to go and sit on the beds of the young girls there.
That is an extraordinary revelation, that he was allowed to indulge in inappropriate behaviour where he would enter a girls' dormitory and sit on a girl's bed.
Yep.
And his mother, the Queen, will have known about that.
Well, I would have thought so. I mean, I would have thought it was known by the authorities at Gordonston.
And what does that anecdote tell us about Andrew's nature?
Well, I think it confirms some of the concerns people have had. I mean, some of these girls that have been trafficked have been a lot younger than 16. And certainly I've got information which I wasn't able to put in the book for legal reasons of young girls being presented to Andrew. So this isn't a story of Virginia Giuffre being 18. As I say, this story can only get bigger as more details emerge.
So you're implying that notwithstanding allegations of sex trafficking, intimate relations with women on royal property, including potentially Buckingham Palace, but you couldn't rule out, Andrew, given your lengthy research into Andrew and his life, that he had relations with legal minors.
That's certainly the information I've been gathering, yes.
And that would clearly be a criminal offence.
Yes, I think there are several charges. I mean, we even had the misconduct of public office telling his protection officer to try and find out information about Virginia Giuffre. I mean, I presented a lot of this information in my book. A lot of what's coming out now isn't new, it's there. But nothing was done. That was August. These stories have been appearing in the press for years about his abuse of his position as a trade envoy, and yet nothing was done. One has to ask why.
One has to ask why. Now, it's very clear that Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor denies all of the allegations. If, however, your concerns are validated, Andrew, we could have a scenario where the King's younger brother is prosecuted for being a paedophile.
Well, I think, we can collect the evidence. I mean, it's certainly the information I've been gathering, and I've done this now for 5 or 6 years. And I've been gratified to see that a lot of things I said in August and was vilified for have proved to be true.
What chance of justice being served if there are victims out there who have been suffered at the hands of Andrew? What are the implications for the monarchy and its survival if Andrew is prosecuted and jailed for these crimes?
Well, I think as long as they address it, as long as they feel that he's not above the law, I think then trust in the institution can be restored. But if there's a sense that there's a cover-up and that they've been complicit in criminal behaviour, then I think they're in difficulties.
Well, that's absolutely right. And by the way, are you convinced by the country's chief prosecutor that no one is above the law, including Andrew? Does he mean it, or is that just warm words?
Well, I hope he means it. Lots and lots of people are beginning to call for an investigation and for the Met Police to press charges. We haven't heard anything from Mark Dolan, the Commissioner of Police. I hope that they're taking their time because they want to get their ducks in a row. But I'm a little worried that this has been kicked into the grass as it has for the last 5 or 6 years.
Will King Charles ever speak to his brother again?
I don't know. I don't know what they do, but I do think King Charles needs to be very clear that he will cooperate, allow his staff to give statements to the police and provide all the internal correspondence, all the complaints that were made about Andrew, all the material the police need to mount a proper investigation.
If Andrew is not prosecuted, but further evidence of a royal cover-up at the palace emerge, what is the threat to the monarchy under those circumstances?
Well, I think it's very serious. I think then people will be calling for a clean sweep. I don't think William is in any way implicated in this scandal. And I think there'll be growing calls for the king to step down.
This is remarkable. So, notwithstanding whether Andrew is jailed for any alleged crimes or prosecuted, there's enough there by way of an alleged cover-up to which you believe there is evidence that the king falls, that he must abdicate early in that scenario and William becomes king.
I think there's been a perversion of the court of justice by the palace, yes.
My goodness, and therefore with the king at the head of that, he would be responsible. Under those circumstances, he would have to go, Andrew.
Well, I think, there is mounting public anger. I mean, he earned some respect when he was seemed to behave much more ruthlessly towards his brother, and he seems to pull back from that. This is a huge crisis. I mean, far bigger than the abdication, which I've written about. And yet the palace don't seem to understand that. They seem to think they can work in the same old ways of just hoping the problem will pass, but it's not going to.
And what about the deal between the king and Andrew to accommodate the former Duke of York, Andrew? free of charge on the Sandringham estate for the rest of his life. You spoke to me on this programme just 2 weeks ago and you said that wasn't tenable. Is it even less tenable now?
Yes, I mean, I think that Andrew needs to be investigated and bailed very quickly because I think he's a flight risk. I think there's a very good chance he's going to disappear to the Middle East, to somewhere where there isn't an extradition treaty, and rather like the King Juan Carlos of Spain, spend his days in a sunny clime for shady people.
You think it's possible that Andrew may flee the country?
Yes, I think that's a very strong possibility if he feels charges are about to be pressed. The last thing the royal family want is a trial with all their dirty linen aired in public.
You must feel very vindicated that you wrote that book last year. Well, of course, it was several years in the making, wasn't it, Andrew? Entitled The Rise and Fall of the House of York. You must feel vindicated. It's been a great talking point, your book, but it's been the beginning of the end for Andrew and may prove to be a significant historic document.
Well, I mean, it's always, one writes books hoping one can affect some sort of change, shift the dial, I call it. I've certainly loosened the earth, and I think it emboldened others to perhaps investigate this. I mean, clearly the Epstein leaks have really helped. But yes, it is gratifying to see that my research has been confirmed by the new releases, because a lot of people didn't believe it and tried to dismiss me as a gossip monger and not as a serious person. But yes, there has been, I would say, corruption at the centre of the royal family, and I think for the sake of the institution, it needs to be rooted out.
And worth noting that you were essentially you had pressure from lawyers acting on behalf of Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor and Sarah Ferguson, making it more difficult for you to write that book. Did you have any pushback from any figures within the actual Buckingham Palace setup and the firm in the writing of your book?
Not that I'm aware of, but I mean, we were very careful. I mean, it was a lot of material was taken out for legal reasons. I had a lot of material, for example, on Mandelson, that whole story, the Islamic Bank with Epstein and Andrew. So we were very careful, but I will be adding this material now to future editions.
A future edition, which I know is coming out later in this year, which will likely be even more devastating. Andrew, always the deepest privilege to have you on the programme. Andrew Lowney, author of entitled The Rise and Fall of the House of York. This is extraordinary stuff, isn't it? That Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor is now flight risk. He could flee the country, go to the Middle East and be accommodated by an Arab sheikh and evade justice for the rest of his life. And what about that bombshell? An alleged cover-up on the part of the palace in relation to Andrew's behaviour and his activities as a trade envoy, allegations of sex trafficking, allegations of underage girls. This is a hot mess and could bring down the reign of King Charles. Pretty wild stuff. This is Talk Breakfast. More to come. It is 7:51.
suppose what is so different about Restore Britain to Reform UK, which then sort of illustrates the why there needs to be Restore Britain?
the meaningful political distinction in British politics today is not left and right, but it is anti-establishment versus establishment.
In terms of defections, Rupert Lowe was a member of the Conservative Party and used to donate significant amounts of money to them. In many respects, he is a Conservative defector.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
7:54, and you're listening to Talk Breakfast. And breaking news this morning, UK unemployment has hit its highest rate in nearly 5 years, rising to 5.2% in the 3 months to December. So borrowing costs through the roof, higher than after Liz Truss's mini budget. Inflation almost double the Bank of England's target. Growth non-existent. And now the old enemy of unemployment is back. Andrew Griffiths is the Shadow Business and Trade Secretary. Andrew Griffith, welcome to Talk Breakfast. More bad headlines for this government.
Yeah, good morning. And it's a tragedy for those people affected. While the Prime Minister's trying to keep his job, other people are losing theirs, particularly young people. And this is yet another consecutive month of increase in unemployment under this government. They were warned. Time and time again over the last 15 months, I've told them if you increase the cost of hiring people, if you pile on lots of red tape with your mad 330-page Unemployment Act, then this is what's going to happen. And it's a tragedy, and the government is wholly to be held to account for this.
Well, that's right, Andrew. It's a war on several fronts for businesses, isn't it? Which is the national insurance tax raid, red tape and the workers' rights package, and the rise in the minimum wage, all of which make it so much harder for companies to hire and so much more of an incentive to downsize and let people go.
Spot on. It's that triple whammy. Why are we here? It's because I think Labour no one in the Cabinet understands business. The intern in the House of Commons gift shops got more business experience than the whole Labour Cabinet put together. And when push comes to shove, actually, Wes Streeting said they have no plan for economic growth. And that is exactly what we're seeing. Growth is bleeding out. Unemployment is rising across the economy. Firms aren't hiring. It's going to take a change of government, change of leader to actually fix this. We Conservatives, we do understand business. I employed tens of thousands of people in the businesses that I helped run over the years. Many of the shadow cabinet are in a similar position. This government just don't seem to care, and they're certainly not listening to anybody.
We had 2% inflation in July 2024 at the time of the election under Rishi Sunak, and the highest growth in the G7 at that time. And in January of 2024 in particular, we were absolutely flying.
Yeah, look, they inherited a fairly good economy. I don't want to pretend, to your viewers that every single thing was perfect, but that we were still borrowing too much as a country.
Sure.
And that's why the next government's going to have to make some really, really hard choices, Mark. But this is on their watch. I mean, unemployment was falling. It was one of the lowest in the European Union. Now it's one of the highest. We've overtaken the rate of youth unemployment in the EU, which was always one of their bugbears and tragedies, that they couldn't grow to create jobs for the young people. And very soon everyone's going to know a son, daughter, niece or nephew who's just not going to be able to get the job that they wanted directly because of this government.
Yes, I think the impact on young people is particularly devastating. And let me now ask you about another devastating headline for the government. And this is a U-turn over cancelled elections in May. They've had their hand forced by the Reform UK leader Nigel Farage and his legal action against the government. Do you regret, though, Andrew, not being all in with Reform's case against the government?
No, look, there's only one person that can bring a legal case at any moment in time. The Conservatives voted time and time again and criticised this denial of democracy. It's right that elections should take place. It's wrong that any government in Whitehall should wake up, as this government has, and decide to reorganise the whole of local government. That's not democratic or constitutional either, and that's where this fault originally comes from. Now, I think someone's got to take responsibility. This is going to cost the taxpayer millions of pounds, possibly hundreds of millions of pounds, and the fact that they weren't willing to make a defence in court shows that they were clearly up to something that did not pass muster, did not pass the test of being legally probate. What were the civil servants in the department doing while ministers were willy-nilly breaking the law and denying democracy? All of the usual checks, just like Mandelson, just like Epstein, just like Matthew Doyle, all of the checks and balances this government has just blasted through. They're not listening to anybody.
And briefly, Andrew, do you think the Prime Minister is done now? Is that the final nail in his coffin? Unemployment, U-turn number 16, this time local elections. Is he toast?
Well, that's a decision for him, but I think the British people are done with him. I'm done with him. Our party's done with him. Our party's ready for government. We've got a plan. We're ready to make tough choices. And we've got a bench that really does understand how to get the economy growing.
Andrew, lovely to see you again. We'll catch up soon. Have a good day. Andrew Griffith, MP. Next up, Sarah Pochin from Reform.
This journey of me following the migrants went from sort of 10 in the morning, all around the clock, to late at night, to the point where, on buses, on trains, through streets, at every key point, French military police and the French police, they were there. They were on the bus, taking down notes, taking pictures, but not doing anything to deter the migrants or stop them, just being there. I was sat in the tent and he was showing me through photos of his phone, scrolling through. This was barbaric, horrific stuff. Blokes going through walls in vehicles and then jumping out and shooting everyone. His WhatsApp picture was him with a mask on, with a gun like that.
You're in a tent with this guy?
I'm in a tent with this guy, and actually he's just showing me this stuff. I'm just thinking, this is not the kind of bloke you want to be coming to the UK.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
3 minutes past 8, top of the morning. Mark Dolan in for Jeremy Kyle. Thank you for your company. Breaking this morning, a victory for democracy, a victory for people power, and a victory for Nigel can I just put my teeth back in? For Nigel Farage's Reform UK. This is a massive story as Sir Keir Starmer performs his 15th U-turn since achieving high office, scrapping plans to cancel local elections in May. So is it now inevitable that the Prime Minister will be gone by the summer? And should the Cabinet Minister responsible for the plan to cancel elections, Steve Reid, now resign? And what about this? Not only is it an embarrassing climb down for the government, they knew they were going to lose this case. Well, the government are going to have to pay Reform UK's estimated legal costs of £250,000. And that means you and I, should we be picking up that bill? Meanwhile, Labour stand accused of a toxic culture of bullying as Starmer's favourite think tank stands accused of a vicious campaign against journalists seeking to smear them for investigating the finances of said think tank. And if you're just joining us at 4 minutes past 8 on a Tuesday morning, we have more breaking news. The UK's unemployment rate has hit its highest level in nearly 5 years, rising to 5.2% in the 3 months to December. Let's get reaction to all of the big political stories of the day. In the company of the Reform UK MP for Runcorn and Helsby, Sarah Pochin. Good morning, Sarah.
Good morning, Mark. It's good to be back with you.
Well, it's great to have you back on the show, and I think that you've got every right to have a smile on your face this morning because it's a victory for people power to see the local elections in May happen. It's a victory for common sense, a victory for democracy, and a victory for your boss, Nigel Farage.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I love about what's just happened in the last 24 hours is it's an example to the British people that reform will take on the establishment and we will win. And this is just the first step. And people say to us, when you get in power, will you be able to sort out the civil service and the Home Office? Yes, we will. And this is just an example of how we are brave enough to stand up to them. We have the most excellent lawyers working for us. And look at this. We have restored democracy to 4.6 million people.
And you can understand why my viewers and listeners are rather put out that thanks to this government's politically motivated decision to scrap local elections, we're now landed with a bill of several £100,000 to understandably pay Reform's legal costs.
And do you know what? I mean, I don't understand, or I'm not sure about the legal ground on this, but why isn't that money coming out of Labour coffers? Because that's exactly where it should be paid from, not by the British taxpayer. And I'll tell you why. Because Keir Starmer and his cronies knew that this wasn't going to work. They knew that they were on thin ice, but they thought that they could bulldoze this decision through. They thought that they could pull the wool over the British people's eyes and deny them their right to vote. But all along, this was a weak position, and he has taken the government into yet again another embarrassing U-turn. But it's not the British taxpayer that should be footing this legal bill. It's Labour coffers.
Most definitely. Is there a defence to be made on the part of cancelling local elections that it's a waste of money because these administrations will be short-lived, zombie administrations, and therefore it's all unnecessary, particularly given the tendency for low voter turnout at local elections?
Look, Mark, I was a borough councillor for 8 years, so I fully understand the importance of local elections. Local elections is where democracy is at its grassroots, and it's the link between people just living their lives and power. It's how you can express your views on whether or not your local councillor is fixing your potholes, whether the council is emptying your bins, whatever it might be. But it's the voice of local people at local level. It's very, very important that that is not lost, because otherwise power for people, in their homes day-to-day, going about their day-to-day lives, is not reachable. You can't influence it. Local elections are critically critically important for democracy.
Labour were very clear that it was counterproductive to have some of these local authorities facing an election, given that they will be short-lived administrations. Here is a clip of Steve Reid, the Community Secretary, on the idea of cancelling elections, speaking in the Commons in January.
To those who say we've cancelled all the elections, we haven't. To those who say it's all Labour councils, it isn't. I've asked, I've listened, and I've acted. No messing about, no playing politics, just getting on with the job of making local government work better for local people.
When it comes to Nigel Farage and his positions on a variety of things, very early when it came to scrapping net zero, very early on the boats crisis, 10 years ago he was in Dover in his barber jacket talking about this shocking, disastrous open border experiment. Brexit, the debanking scandal. This is a guy that tends to win his battles.
Well, the great thing about Nigel and what the British people love about Nigel is that he is consistent. You know, you don't see Nigel Farage U-turning on his opinions or his views or his policy direction, unlike the Tories, who are now U-turning on everything that they stood for in the 14 years that they were in power, and unlike this Prime Minister who's up to his 14th or 15th or 16th or whatever it is U-turn. But the point is that Nigel sticks to what he believes in. And that's true of all of us reform politicians. You know, so I've never changed the rhetoric that comes from me. And Nigel is the same. And that's why people know that they've got people with integrity now, hopefully, and I'm sure we will be, forming the next government.
Well, Nigel Farage is a formidable politician, and he will very much be perceived as the change candidate at the next election, Sarah. However, Reform do have one noticeable Achilles heel, and that's money.
Well, what happens?
That's the soft underbelly, isn't it? The numbers don't add up. The spreadsheet's a nightmare.
Are you talking about? Are you talking about our
more red than Labour?
Are you talking about people that are donating money? I'm not quite sure what.
Well, look, of course, I know that the campaign coffers are filling up, and more power to you for that. But there are genuine concerns, even from voters on the right, people that maybe are fed up with the Tories or fed up with Labour. They want to vote for your party, Sarah. They admire you, they admire Farage and the team and the message, but they're worried about that spreadsheet, the bottom line. You know, this is a party that's going to lift everyone out of taxation.
Okay.
We're going to have enormous amounts of border control, which will cost billions. Public services are going to get investment. We're going to sort out the economy. It all costs money.
Yeah, I understand your question now. So look, we've been very clear. Billions of pounds are wasted on net zero projects that, in our opinion, are absolutely not a priority in this country. So immediately you've got the access to the money that is being wasted by the likes of
That'll take years. That'll take years to feed through, though, won't it, Sarah? We won't get that on day one. Money doesn't land in our account on the first Monday of a Reform UK government. That could be years in the making.
But the point is that those billions that have been set aside by this government will then be able to be used for other things. Let me go on. The foreign nationals in this country bleeding our welfare state dry will go. They will go. They will be deported. Our prisons will be emptied of foreign national offenders, saving all of that money for our British taxpayers. There are so many quick wins. The money that we waste, that we spend as British taxpayers on supporting illegal asylum seekers will stop on day one, because they will all be deported and dealt with and sent home. That releases millions and millions of pounds to go towards important British priorities like housing lists for British people, like improving our education system. There is so much work to be done. Do you know, Mark, that in my constituency of Runcorn and Helsby, I don't have a swimming pool. I don't have a further education college. It stops at 16 education in my constituency. That doesn't cost billions. Those facilities cost millions, and I can get all of that if we stop this crazy net zero nonsense. I have a £25 billion carbon capture project in my constituency. 25 billion, but no swimming pool and no further education facilities. How is that right? We are failing local people because of this nonsense.
And it's not clear that that expensive carbon capture project will deliver sustainable energy or indeed save the planet, Sarah. It's a real concern. And listen, I'm sure on the economy there are some very positive suggestions, including getting taxes down so we can have economic growth, which at the moment is noticeably absent. So clearly there are going to be policies that work. Are you concerned, though, that when you achieve power, if you do, the country will be so badly in the red, it will be difficult for you to roll out your programme?
I'll tell you one of the things that concerns me most. I recently held a small business business breakfast for small businesses. They are stopping hiring. So you mentioned earlier in a headline about the unemployment rates going up. So small businesses now, because of the national insurance contributions, because of the workers' rights bill, because of the minimum wage, because of the lack of zero-hour contracts, etc., 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 businesses have stopped hiring. You cannot get growth if businesses stagnate. That is exactly the policies of this Labour government. They are not pro-business. And yes, that will hit in April 26 this year. So two months away, these policies are going to kick in big time and businesses are not hiring. We have literally swept away the employment market from our young people. We already have a huge issue with 16 to 24-year-old employment in this country. This Labour government with these policies has just made it a million times worse. That's what concerns me. This country cannot sustain that situation for another 3 years because we will be in economic ruin. I don't think the markets will put up with it. And you know what? I don't think the public will put up with it.
How do you think things are going to pan out for the economy for the remainder of this administration? Because you've got skin in the game, Sarah, given that the polls suggest you will be the next government. Do you think there could be some kind of financial crash in the meantime?
Well, as I've just said, look, the growth will completely stagnate and unemployment will increase. There is no aspiration for our young people. An economy cannot survive in that way. We also know, don't we, that the wealthiest are leaving the country, and those people are the ones that pay the taxes, the most of the taxes. So therefore, all of that money that is lost comes down to you and me and everybody else. It increases on our tax bill. So if taxes are going up, unemployment is going up, business is stagnating, then the economy will absolutely crash. And mark my words, when we're having this conversation in a year's time, things are going to be desperate and the markets will not sustain that. They will not put up with that.
Now, it's my understanding that you were a Justice of the Peace, a magistrate for several years. And, of course, you've got experience in local government. You're now a serving MP, Sarah. Are you concerned that the bureaucratic and legal blob will stop your efforts to deport, for example, foreign criminals if you achieve power?
No, because we have the will to do it. And I have said all along that deporting illegal asylum seekers is all about the will of the government. We will leave the ECHR. And it's absolute nonsense to listen to Kemi Badenoch saying that she will do the same. No, they won't. The Conservative Party will never leave the ECHR, and certainly Labour have never said that they will. And that's why everything that comes out of Shabama Mahmood's mouth is nonsense. Because unless you leave the ECHR, unless you put aside the Human Rights Act and so on and so forth, then you will never succeed with these deportations. And we saw, haven't we, just in the last 24 hours, this nonsense ruling now about compensating illegal arrivals for taking their mobile phones. How is this even happening? We are allowing a whole industry of human rights lawyers to flourish in this country at the expense of the British taxpayer. So no, I'm not concerned at all. And this election win that we've just had, that Nigel Farage has just had, shows that if you take on the establishment and you have the will to do it, then you will win. And I would hope and assume that people in the civil service service people in the Home Office are really quite concerned about what's going to happen when a Reform government gets in, because if they're not on our side, then there's going to be a real power struggle, but we will win it, because it is the will of the government to carry out the will of the people. That is why we are elected officials.
And all of this is very well intentioned. Do you have any concern, though, that there's a danger that Reform UK, perhaps a bit like Boris Johnson in the run-up to the election in 2019, of over-promising and under-delivering, letting people down and therefore impacting people's faith in democracy? Is it not time now for Nigel, yourself, Richard, Zia and the entire Reform team to say it's going to be very difficult? The economy will be shattered if and when we take over. The blob will try to resist every effort to deport foreign criminals. Closing the border is going to cost money, it's going to take time. Do you need to manage expectations?
Look, we've not said it's going to be easy, but we have laid down some key differences with the other parties. And as I say, one of them is leaving the ECHR. Nothing could be achieved whilst we're in the ECHR. But what I would say is, look, you know, how have the other two main parties that we've had for 100 plus years, the choice of these two parties, how have they performed? Look at the state that they've got us into. And not only that, look at the sleaze and the fraud and the corruption and everything else that's gone with these parties. So, you know, I would say that, look, give Reform a go, because you can see already that we can do what we say we're going to do. We have restored democracy to 4.6 million people. So, look, there's an example of, yes, where there is a will, we will carry out our policies.
Sarah, it's my understanding that Robert Jenrick, the Tory defection to Reform UK, may be, is that right, Christian, may be unveiled as Reform's Chancellor of the Exchequer, Shadow Chancellor, or I guess, yes, what would you call him, you know, spokesperson. Shadow. Exactly, as Chancellor, which would be an interesting move. What cabinet position have you got your eye on? Are you thinking Justice or Home Secretary?
Well, look, obviously Nigel is in charge and Nigel makes those decisions. We do have a press conference this morning and there is an article in the Telegraph that's come from somewhere suggesting various positions that are going to be announced this morning. But we'll all have to wait. It's 11 o'clock this morning. We'll all have to wait and see what Nigel has decided to do at this stage.
Oh, I see. So we will get more than just the appointment potentially of Robert Jenrick as the Shadow Chancellor brief. We'll hear about other appointments on the front bench. Is that right?
Well, look, according to the Telegraph, that's right. But I, like you, will wait until 11 o'clock to hear what Nigel has to say. But all I would say is, look, we've got some excellent people that have joined us. The people that we have already, I think, are high-quality individuals in this game for the right reasons. So I think that is why the British public will give us their vote, because they need someone to put hope their hope into. And that's the one thing that you can't kill off is hope. And I think that everybody now is desperate to get rid of this Labour government. I mean, God help us when Keir Starmer goes, which he will go after the May elections, because they will be absolutely slaughtered in those elections, as will the Conservatives. So he will go at that point. A new Labour leader will come in. God help us if it's Ed Miliband or Angela Rayner. The country will be on its knees by Christmas. And as I say, the hope is placed now by the British people in Reform.
And I don't want to pop your balloon, but a quick one from Peter in North Somerset before we let you go, Sarah. We know you're busy this morning. Thanks for your time. Good morning, Mark. Great show. Listening to Sarah this morning. Fantastic, no problem. But I'm becoming increasingly concerned that Reform talk a great game, but they don't have their finger on the fiscal pulse. They need to work harder on the detail. Otherwise, we will be in the same boat for a lot longer. I think Peter is committed to the cause, Sarah, but he wants the devil in the detail. Can you promise that will happen?
Well, that's exactly what this morning is all about in the press conference this morning. So Nigel is starting to outline his shadow team. And I think it's entirely appropriate that those individuals are called shadow Secretary of States, because we are the party of opposition.
And are you going to do your homework? Are you going to make the sums add up? Is someone going to buy Nigel Farage a calculator?
Well, when you get expert people involved, just wait and see who is appointed where this morning. I think that will give confidence to people looking to place their vote with reform.
Sarah, a delight to have you on the programme. Please join us again in the near future. My thanks to Sarah Pochin, who is, of course, a Reform UK MP for Runcorn and Helsby. And who knows, maybe she'll get a shadow cabinet position announced at 11 a.m. this morning. You'll get full coverage on that from the Queen of Talk, Julia Hartley-Brewer, who is live on this network at exactly 10 a.m. Shocking news, a developing story, breaking news. UK unemployment has hit its highest rate in nearly 5 years, rising to 5.2% in the 3 months to December. Here's a voice note from Gary.
Morning, Mark. It's Gary from Canterbury. Great show. In regards to the unemployment figures, now I had my car in for a service MOT last week. I wondered why it was taking so long. When I eventually picked it up, the owner actually said to me that he had to let 2 people go because he could not afford to keep them because of the national insurance contribution, but also business rates had been pushed up on him as well. I'm not sure where this is going to end, but everywhere you go at the moment, it seems to be an issue. You just cannot get anything done. But anyway, great show. Thanks for keeping these things highlighted.
I will, Gary. That is my job. It's to get your opinions and concerns on the national radio and television airwaves, to call out the madness of policies which are clearly going to hurt the country, to ruinous budgets, and here we are with borrowing costs higher than after Liz Truss's mini budget. My God, I'd have Liz Truss back in a flash. Would I take Liz Truss now? All day long I would. Inflation, almost double the Bank of England's target. And there you go, Gary is living the economy, trying to do his bit. And yeah, it's just a nightmare. So we'll keep your opinions on the radio and on the TV. So much more to come. Next up, a shocking, toxic row about the Labour Party and an effort to smear journalists for doing their job. This is a nightmare story for Starmer. 8:24, that's next.
Join me, Ian Collins, every weekday from 1.
My 12-year-old. Obviously, he won't be 12 then, he'll be 16, but if he's anything like he is now, he shouldn't be anywhere near an election booth. Do you sympathise with him? Is he the victim of the 24-hour news cycle we just spoke of?
I think his failings are internal. He's useless, incompetent, has no political judgment.
Everything you need to know. All the breaking news right here on Talk.
Weekday afternoons from 1 o'clock. Only at the home of common sense.
Across the UK. On DAB+. On YouTube. On your mobile. And on your side. This is Talk.
Lovely to have you. Always a good rule in broadcasting to have your microphone plugged in. I've just made a cup of tea because it's Talk Breakfast, and my goodness, what a busy show today. So I need as much caffeine as I can get into my bloodstream because I've got about 11 different stories for you. Andrew Lowney, the man whose book was the beginning of the end for Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, has revealed on this programme that the King's younger brother is a flight risk, could actually flee to the Middle East and escape justice. Most serious allegations placed at his door. That's a big story. We've got the breaking news that unemployment it's hit its highest rate in nearly 5 years, rising to 5.2%. We've got this shocking 15th U-turn on the part of this government in regard to local elections in May. They're all going ahead now. Keir Starmer had his hand forced by Nigel Farage, and we've got to pick up the bill, a reported £250,000 for Labour's embarrassing U-turn. And what about this now? The governing party stand accused of going after journalists for doing their job and looking into the financing of a Labour think tank that propelled Keir Starmer to power. Let's get reaction from the legendary journalist and columnist at the Sun newspaper, Leo McKinstry, who has the story. Good morning, Leo.
Good morning, Mark. Thanks for having me on.
Well, it's a privilege to have you on, and it's a very important story. What exactly do Labour Together and those involved with this think tank stand accused of doing?
Well, in September 2024, Keir Starmer said that journalism is the lifeblood of democracy, and his government would do everything they can to protect journalists. But they have a funny way of showing it, because Labour Together, which is a shadowy think tank, was the vehicle that brought Keir Starmer to the Labour leadership and ultimately to the premiership, headed by his Chief of Staff, Morgan McSweeney. They conducted a smear campaign against journalists. And what was the crime of these journalists who worked for the Sunday Times? They had revealed that Labour Together, the shadowy think tank, had £730,000 in donations that they hadn't declared to the Electoral Commission in accordance with the law. So they were eventually fined £14,000 for breaches of the electoral law. But instead of showing any shame over these offences, catalogue of serious offences, what the Labour Together did was hire a PR firm to investigate the backgrounds of these journalists, even their relationships, their religious faith. Totally outrageous. It's like something that belongs to East Germany, the Stasi in Soviet era, and it's not something that belongs in Britain, which is the land of Magna Carta and the pioneer of parliamentary democracy. It's truly an outrage, and it sums up everything so many people feel about Labour's contempt for freedom, their contempt for liberty and the press, and even basic democracy, as they showed with the select farce over the local elections.
And it puts paid, Leo, to the idea that these figures on the left are the good guys, or that we've got the grown-ups back in charge.
Absolutely. That notorious remark of Andrew Mars, he himself once said that the BBC is a profoundly liberal organisation. But Sir Keir Starmer, in opposition, constantly painted himself as the champion of morality as opposed to sleazy Tories. And when he got in, it was all going to be a higher ethical standard. And what have we seen? We've seen sleaze even worse than the Tories, and this nasty authoritarian streak that wants to destroy liberty and wants the press to be regurgitating its propaganda rather than investigating injustice.
Well, that's right. Now, Leo, I'm so privileged to have you on the show, given your decades of experience in journalism and this brilliant piece in The Sun today. And for anyone watching, they will be aware that you have a number of health issues that make it very difficult for you. And we're so grateful, therefore, that you've made the time to join us on Talk Breakfast and that you've written...
I apologise to you.
No, there's no apologies required, because you're a titan of journalism, and it's so important that you've written this piece in The Sun today. The headline, "Spying on the Press belongs to the age of East Germany, not democratic Britain today." And Leo, your capacious knowledge of political history will tell you that we've been here before, including the likes of Damien McBride, a bruiser that worked...
That's a very good point. Gordon Brown was on his moral high horse all last week, demanding that the Aegean stables be cleaned. And yet, when he was Prime Minister, his chief publicity officer, Damien McBride, organised a secret unit to smear his opponents by raking up details of their private life. So you're dead right, we've been here before. And that made me sick when Gordon Brown was posing as the champion of cleaned up politics when he brought the very opposite to Downing Street.
Do you think that the government, that Starmer, as the man who benefited from the work of Labour together, will face any political consequences from this?
Look, there's such a deluge of stories now.
Yeah.
As you said, you've got a packed programme with stories that so many of them show the iniquities of this government and the abuses of power. So it's hard to know how much lower Keir Starmer can sink. But I think this story will do tremendous damage, not only because it is shocking that Labour apparatchiks who are meant to be defending democracy were organising smear campaigns against journalists who were just doing their job, but also it involves Morgan McSweeney again, his crucial right-hand man. So it goes right to the heart of government. And it just shows that Labour, in part, is rotten to the core.
Leo, I'm so grateful for your time. An incredible piece in The Sun. I would urge my viewers and listeners to either find that story online on The Sun's website or purchase your copy of the paper today. Spying on the Press belongs to the age of East Germany, not democratic Britain today. From the titan of Fleet Street, that is Leo McKinstry. Leo, I do hope you'll join us again in the near future. A fascinating and important conversation, but as Leo said, it's just add it to the roster of other scandals facing this government. It's hard to keep up, isn't it? The damage is done. Surely Starmer is toast. Now, we've got breaking news that the UK unemployment rate has hit its highest level in nearly 5 years, rising to 5.2% in 3 months to December. And this is awkward because I've got a clip here from Rachel Reeves last week saying the economy had turned a corner. Take a listen.
We can't turn things around overnight, but we have created the conditions now for the economy to grow, and it is doing just that.
Oh my goodness, we're in a world of Orwellian doublespeak, aren't we? Seriously, the economy's turned a corner, right? Inflation nearly double the Bank of England's target. Is that turning a corner? Borrowing costs higher than after Liz Truss's mini budget. I'd have her back in a flash. Is that stabilising the economy? You couldn't make it up, folks. What they say is the opposite of what the truth is. You know it, I know it, and they know it too. Next up, a fresh news scandal in relation to the Chagos sell-off. Is the thing even legal? That's next.
Across the UK. On DAB+. On YouTube. On your mobile. And on your side. This is Talk.
Well, you are listening to Talk Breakfast, 8:37. So many big stories to get through. Listen, folks, lots of feedback coming in on a range of subjects. Reg has messaged the show. Good morning, Reg. Lovely to have your company. He says, Mark, just listening to you speaking to Sarah Pochin from Reform in regard to having skin in the game, I firmly believe that Labour know that they're not going to get a second term, so they'll scorch the ground on their way out. That is what they normally do. Well, yeah, there's talk about, for example, signing us up to a customs union, which would kill trade deals with other countries and would cost billions to exit. So there is a real worry that whether it's in the economy, whether it's border control, that Labour will tie the hands of a future government. That is a concern. I have to say, whichever administration gets in, whether it's Reform or the Tories or whoever it is, it's going to take a long time to save this country, but save it we can. I'll get to more of your thoughts and feedback shortly, but a fresh new development in the Chagos Islands sell-off. This, of course, disgraceful, egregious dispensing of a sovereign territory which has geopolitical and military advantages, and it's going to cost us a fortune for the privilege of doing so. Well, Robert Midgley is the head of communications at Friends of the British Overseas Territories, and Robert, you've unearthed a suggestion that the government's basis for this Chagos Islands giveaway is actually unjustified and wrong. Tell us why.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you don't mind, I'll just explain a bit about the background.
Give us the background.
So as we all know, the Defence Secretary made a statement on the 22nd of May 2025 where he said the reason for giving away the Chagos Islands was based on these international rulings. And he specifically set out and said this was from ITLOS, which is the International Tribunal for the Laws of the Sea. So that was the reason why we're giving away. That's the reason why we're supposedly giving away £47 billion to lease back the Garcia, which has the military base on. So we have been, of course, you know about the campaign, and we have been using a series of MPs to send through written statements to the ministers, just plucking away at little details of negotiations. And then we had something really interesting come through just on Friday, where we said, oh, how does the International Tribunal of Laws of the Sea apply to other overseas territories under Article 298? Are we still signed up to the Article 298, which is a military exemption? So they confirmed we are still signed up to Article 298 in the International Tribunal of Laws of the Sea. And so that has now confirmed to us that actually we can apply that to the Chagos Islands, and it takes away that legal reasoning why we're giving it away.
Because the government's argument was that if we don't do this deal, we will be caught up in legal wrangles for years to come.
Yes, so they cancelled out the ITU ruling. I should make out that another reason they said was to protect the electromagnetic spectrum of the islands, and that would be done through the ITU, which is the International Telecommunications Union. There's a military exemption on that too, Article 48. So they ruled that out. And also they ruled out another ruling from the ICJ. Of course, that was a non-binding advisory opinion, so it doesn't really mean anything. And then if they can't make that binding because there's two Commonwealth members involved, you can't do a binding ruling between two Commonwealth members. So those two aspects have already been ruled out. So now we've ruled out a third aspect, which is the international laws of the sea. And those are the three areas the government have used as defence to give away the Chagos Islands. So we've taken the rug from the under the table, and the whole thing is now pointless.
So, Robert, a military exemption allows us to keep the Chagos Islands indefinitely?
Yes. Yeah.
And good luck suing us for not giving away this sovereign territory.
Yeah, we can't get it.
There would be no legal basis.
There's no legal basis anymore.
And they could try, they likely wouldn't win.
So
have you spoken to lawyers about this?
Yes, we've spoken to lawyers about it, and I was on GB News just yesterday with James Tunbridge, who is our lawyer, and they fully support what we were doing. The next step is, has Parliament been misled by the government? There's a huge question now, because the Defence Secretary said this, which made MPs vote for that.
The Defence Secretary has spoken in the House of Commons
at the dispatch box and said this deal has to be done because otherwise we're breaking international law.
And these are the reasons.
And these are the reasons why.
Where it would supposedly come from.
Is there a possibility that they were just unaware of the availability of this military exemption? Might they not have known?
They definitely knew because MPs on the other side have been asking about it as well. But there wasn't clarity to say, yes, we're actually still signed up to Article 298. So this is where the groundbreaking moment came from on Friday, where they confirmed in writing that that exemption does exist.
And what about government lawyers? Where might they stand on this?
Well, I think it's government lawyers who put us into this position to start with. You know, they could have defended us using Article 298 back in 2019.
Don't be silly. Government lawyers aren't going to defend Britain. You don't do that anymore, Robert. Well, so this is wild, isn't it? So do you have a potential there of then what could be, as you say, somebody the relevant minister misleading Parliament or being responsible for a cover-up? How would you frame it?
Well, there's a whole host of ministers who've been reading the government lines. So it now lands on the Speaker and the Lord Speaker, because it's in the Lords at the moment, to actually take this further. So we're now getting relevant MPs and Lords on side to take it up to the Speaker and say, look, this was said then, so therefore we feel we have been misled, and we should take further action to possibly pause the bill further or withdraw it completely.
Far be it from me to offer any defence of the government. Is there any suggestion that this military exemption is time limited and that we'd be back to square one at a certain point?
No. Because we're one of the leading members of UNCLOS. We're a founding member, I believe. So no, there's no possibility.
Was there also an argument that, notwithstanding this military exemption, that even if that wasn't available, that you could hang on to the islands and just fight the good fight in court anyway?
Yeah. And we would keep it because we have sovereignty over these islands since 1814. You know, we first got these islands from the Battle of Waterloo. They were originally French. When we defeated Napoleon, it's the Treaty of Paris, 1814, that signed us over those islands in perpetuity.
So why do you think this government are so keen to give away the Chagos Islands if there's a legal case to keep them?
Look, I think this has been ideologically driven now. I wasn't convinced by this a few months ago, but now I'm absolutely convinced that this is ideology driven. I think the people who are pushing it are people like Jonathan Powell, Felipe Sands, Lord Hermer. These key people have been pushing this for decades, and now they finally got their moment to do it. That's why they've been pushing it.
Yeah, you've got messages coming in thick and fast, and I know you're sitting on a bit of an embargoed story. So whilst we're on air, I'm happy for you to, give us any updates or any developments whilst we're broadcasting, because there is quite a significant development happening on the island. And I don't know if you're at liberty to tell us yet.
I have been told that I can say this now.
So we've got some more breaking news at 8:45 on Talk Breakfast. What's the latest regarding Chagos and the Chagosian people?
So I have news that a group of Chagosians have now landed on one of the Chagos Islands, and they will be refusing to leave until the military literally take them off.
Now, this is remarkable because they were taken off the island some time ago.
Yeah.
Against their wishes. A majority of the Chagosian people, I understand, do not want this sell-off to happen, do they?
So this group of Chagosians are British Chagosians. They've been travelling for the past few weeks now.
They've not been consulted, by the way, the Chagosian people, have they?
No, not by government officially, no. So we've done various polling with Chagosians, and we found that the British Chagosian groups, which are about 4,000, 5,000, there's about 8,000, 10,000 in total, wish to remain British, and they want the Chagos Islands to remain under British sovereignty and protect the base. So they want to resettle on the outer islands whilst maintaining the military base. They understand that it all needs protecting. And by having a settled Chagosian population there, it then brings in self-determination, which means they're protected by UN law, which means the whole territory cannot be disputed in any court.
Yeah.
So this is very symbolic.
So then
now.
you'd have the double whammy. You'd have the local population that say this is our home and we're staying. You would have the military exemption. Case closed. We keep the Chagos.
I mean, it's already been case closed since forever anyway.
Yeah.
But this is now further confirmation on that.
So now that's an interesting development. So, because am I mistaken in thinking that the Chagosians have already vacated the islands?
So they were evicted from the islands back in the 1960s.
Right.
they weren't meant to be taken off. The Americans said they can stay on the outer islands, but they had to be taken off Diego Garcia, but the UK government said, we will take them all off anyway. So private security company took them off the islands. It was a very traumatic moment for Chagossians.
For sure.
And they were put onto boats, their pets were shot and burnt alive. It was very, very traumatic for them. Their houses were destroyed. And then most of them came to the UK. And that's why most of them live in Crawley by Gatwick Airport, and the others were sent to the Maldives and Mauritius.
Extraordinary treatment. So a number of Chagossians, British Chagossians, have now they're going to the island, or have they, or one of the islands, or
they landed a few hours ago.
Okay, now this is, and why is this so significant?
This is significant because they're now on the islands, and their government in exile is Misley Mandarin. He's leading the government in exile as the interim First Minister. His group have now landed on the islands.
And is he part of that group?
Yeah, he's the leader of the group.
Wow.
So they will be refusing to leave the islands that they have now landed on, and they can claim squatters' rights now.
Yeah, they most definitely can, and that'll be a significant personal sacrifice to them. Do we know what sort of numbers have flown over?
It's a very small group. I believe.
Handful of people.
Yeah, handful of people. I'm just trying to get more information on it right now. I've got a press release in front of me.
Yeah. Well, while you're talking, I mean, let's just bring people up to speed on what we've heard so far from Robert Midgley, Head of Communications at Friends of the British Overseas Territories. His argument is that the government's position on Chagos and why it had to happen, this massive giveaway of our sovereignty at a cost of billions to you and I, is because there was no legal way around it. Basically, you would be caught up in all sorts of lawfare for years to come if we didn't do a deal. Well, in fact, the argument propounded by Robert Midgley is that there is a exemption on the military basis, the military role of these islands, which gives us exemption. And of course, if the Chagossians return to their homeland, then they will also have rights, given that they would have self-determination. You won't get them out. So this is quite extraordinary. It's a Talk Breakfast exclusive. And it's hard, isn't it, Robert, to understand why the government have done this. Now, you've suggested that if it wasn't required legally and that there were exemptions, that this is ideological. What would that ideology be?
Look, I think this is some sort of socialist, ideological, we want to decolonise the world kind of thing.
Oh, it's an apology for our terrible history.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, is that the same history where we gave the world representative democracy, free speech, open markets, ended slavery and the rule of law?
Yeah,
is that the same terrible Britain?
Don't forget the Chagossians are direct descendants of slaves, and they've been treated terribly. Like, they've been living in the UK, they've been bullied in Mauritius. They've had a law against them in Mauritius, which meant 10 years in prison if they were to define themselves as British Chagossians.
These are the lovely Mauritians that we're giving the Chagos Islands to?
Yeah.
Mauritius, which, by the way, is a country that is a close economic ally of China, no less.
Yeah, and so one of their ports in Mauritius has been directly invested by China. They have lots of projects going on where there's like a smart hub going on in Mauritius that's also paid by China. If you look at a map of all the Chinese investments and ports down in East Africa, you'll see a nice line of Chinese direct investment from the Belt and Road Initiative. It doesn't take a genius to work out that China's hands are all over this, and there's absolutely no surprise that Mauritius has been trying to claim this for the past 20, 30 years.
Now, the clock's against us. We're going to power through a couple of other issues. Are there any political parties behind this protest by the British Chagossians that have landed in their home?
Reform have sponsored the whole thing.
So they paid for it? They paid for the flights?
They paid for it. The person on the ground is Adam Holloway, who's a former MP. And they set off around the 27th of January, I believe. And at that point, I was actually in DC lobbying all the State Department and the White House and all of this, and senators. So it's a bit of a two-pronged approach going along.
Well, I've got three more quick questions before you go. First of all, do the Tories deserve some culpability here, some blame, given that it was, I understand, James Cleverly that opened negotiations with Mauritius over the Chagos Islands?
Look, in their defence, they stalled it as much as they could. They didn't pass the bill through. They didn't even start the bill. They clung on to negotiations, and they've been very supportive of us for the past few months.
So you don't think if the Tories were still in power, they'd be doing this?
I think they probably would, and we would be up against the same sort of opposition right now. But we are where we are, and we will fight it.
What does that tell us about the difference between, let's say, the Conservatives and Reform, if you think that the Conservatives in power would ultimately have relented?
Look, I think that no matter who is in...
Damning, isn't it?
Yeah, of course. But the thing is that these two parties are from the same head. No matter who is in charge, they will just continue that government agenda, because we have a problem where civil servants are driving this through. I know civil servants have been bragging about giving away the Chagos Islands for years, that they've suddenly got all this power that they can sign this off to Mauritius.
It's the same civil servants that were so enthusiastic about lockdowns and Sage enforced Boris's hand. Same civil servants who told the Home Secretary and the Prime Minister at the time that we needed the Boris wave.
You know, I'm fully on the side that there's a deep state issue against this.
Wow, and then two more quick ones. Donald Trump, will he change his mind about supporting the Chagos deal?
Look, he's already changed his mind. From my
disappointing, wasn't it, when he folded?
No, not at all, to be honest, because we spoke to the State Department a few hours before, and they said, look, we're against the deal, but we have to be diplomatic about this. So therefore, we will put out a statement that says diplomatically, we're against it, but we'll go with you. But they specifically said to us, look, you have to sort it out from the inside.
So Washington might get behind, and then that's my last question, can this be stopped?
Of course it can be stopped, Mark.
Will it be?
I hope so. It's looking fairly likely, but we can't depend on that.
Wow! This is breaking news, 8:53, Talk Breakfast. Robert Midgley, Head of Communications at Friends of the British Overseas Territories, thinks that the Chagos giveaway can be stopped, may well be stopped. This is Talk Breakfast.
We genuinely are on resignation watch. There is absolutely no doubt about it. Labour MPs, they say, listen, Keir, your position is untenable. This is all about appointing that rat, Peter Mandelson, who faces a criminal investigation.
Can Keir Starmer survive the Mandelson scandal? We have breaking news for you. We've just been talking about, of course, Morgan McSweeney, the Chief of Staff. We've now had another resignation from Number 10. And Keir Starmer's Director of Communications, Tim Allen, has now also resigned. The plot is thickening. The noose is tightening.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Breaking news at 8:57 on Talk Breakfast, and the Chagos Islands giveaway could be cancelled based around an exemption on a military arguments. This from Paul. So Starmer and his government have lied over the Chagos Islands deal. They've lied just about everything else. Well, that's a very unwelcome headline for the Prime Minister, as is the other breaking news that unemployment has hit its highest rate in nearly 5 years. Plus, the small matter of Labour's 15th U-turn since achieving office, with the news that they're going to be scrapping their plans to cancel May local elections. Is that it for Starmer? Is he done? We'll get to that in the next hour. I've got some big guests on that, but first this.
90 minutes in 90 seconds.
From The Sun. And I'm delighted to welcome Josh Hall, Arsenal reporter at The Sun newspaper. Josh, top of the morning to you, and some big boxing news.
Yeah, some big news. I mean, we already knew that Tyson Fury was going to be returning to the ring in April to fight Russian Arslanbek Makhmudov, but he said yesterday that it was the tragic incident of the deaths with Anthony Joshua's two friends that passed away in that car crash that has sort of inspired him to return to the ring. So, you know, quite a nice story to come out of what was really a tragic story initially.
Well, indeed, such a devastating accident and fatalities. Very tough indeed, an awful story to even think about. Tyson Fury, has he still got the ability to do well in the ring, do you think, Josh?
Well, we'll have to wait and see. This is the 5th time he's retired and come out of retirement, so he certainly knows how to do it. He certainly knows how to get his body back in shape, and he is a superb fighter. And you'll expect that stadium to be packed at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in April, and I think he certainly still could back and win. Yeah,
well, that's it. 37 years of age. It's not a hugely old age to be a boxer, is it?
Well, look, it depends who you're fighting. His opponent's going to be 36 years of old, 8 years of age. Sorry, he certainly could still win. The thing that he has in his favour is that he knows how to get hit, and that's something that a lot of boxers don't have. You know, some people rely more on their speed, whereas he knows how to get hit, and he'll be fine doing that.
And Josh, just a couple of seconds. I was really gunning for Macclesfield, but unfortunately, an own goal by the PE teacher did for them against Brentford.
Yeah, it's a sad end to their sort of fairy tale story, but 117 places above them, Brentford, and it was only a 1-0 defeat. So
Josh, lovely to see you. We'll catch up soon. Keep it.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
3 minutes past 9. You're listening to Mark Dolan in for Jeremy Kyle. And breaking this morning, a victory for democracy, a victory for people power, and a victory for Nigel Farage's Reform UK as Sir Keir Starmer performs his 15th U-turn, scrapping plans to cancel local elections in May. But why should the taxpayer pick up the bill for Reform UK's legal expenses? Shouldn't the Labour Party cover the cost? And what about the Cabinet Minister responsible for this shocking plan to cancel our democracy? Steve Reed, has he got to go? Meanwhile, Labour stand accused of a toxic culture of bullying as they also face charges of pursuing journalists in a vicious campaign against Sir Keir Starmer's favourite think tank, Labour Together. And it's been a day of breaking news because if you joined us earlier, you'll have heard that UK unemployment has hit its highest rate in nearly 5 years, rising to 5.2% in the 3 months to December. Here's a voice note from Mike on the state of the real economy.
Morning, Mark. Hope you're well. Mike the cabbie here from Portsmouth. Just a quick one and an absolute prime example of how bad the benefits system is. Recently met a family, 6 children in total. The crazy thing is the dad and husband is registered as a carer for the mum through one of the disability schemes. What's even worse is the mum is registered as a carer for 2 of the children. How, if you need care, can you also be registered as a carer? And because of this, they both have brand new shiny cars. One of them, lovely new Audi. We as a family foster. So we've got 2 of our own kids. We also foster 2 young lads, both of them with quite bad learning difficulties and quite high needs. We get no support from the government at all. I just don't understand how the government have allowed people to play the system so badly, and everyone else who gets up, goes to work in the morning, has to foot the bill for it.
Mike, thank you for that incredibly devastating voice note. It's a racket, isn't it? It's such a scam. It's so unfair. The incentives are all wrong. You're doing your bit. 2 of your own kids, I understand, 2 foster kids as well with learning challenges, and yet you get no support. Meanwhile, you've got a family on a merry-go-round of benefits. It's so outrageous, Mike, and welcome to Broken Britain. Thank you for that. Keep us updated on your situation, and please do let me know in the days ahead. I'm looking after breakfast all week for Jeremy Kyle. I want to know about the real economy because we've got the official headline statistics that unemployment is up. That's the breaking news this morning. Government borrowing, inflation, low growth. But I want to hear about your economy and your experience of what it's like trying to make ends meet. So much to get through. A quick bit of feedback on the text before our next guest. Caroline in Norfolk. Good morning, Mark. I agree with your caller, Kitty. I don't think the taxpayer should have to pay the expenses of this government's failed efforts to reverse May elections. If Labour together can find 36,000 to stalk journalists, I'm sure the Labour Party can scrape together some money to pay for this legal action. Sharon says the British people are always paying for the mistakes this useless government has made. All the Labour MPs should foot the bill. Merv says, Mark, could we the people take the Labour Party and the government to court directly for the legal costs that Reform have incurred trying to restore our democracy? And Sarah says the rising unemployment rates are a direct result of the policies of these 2 thickos, Reeves and Starmer. Well, Sarah, thank you so much for that. At 7 minutes past 9, we've got more breaking news, and it is the fact that in a breakfast exclusive here on Talk, we can reveal that a number of British Chagossians have landed back on the island, the disputed island, and are refusing to leave. Reform UK
have paid for their flights and are supporting their protest. This on top of fresh revelations that there are legal grounds that could prevent the Chagos Islands giveaway, particularly in relation to the military status of those islands. Now, we've got it on good authority from our previous guest on the show that in fact we don't have to give away Chagos, and there is a legal grounds to keep those islands in perpetuity, which of course is the desire of the US president. He doesn't want the Chagos Islands giveaway. Most of the public don't want it, and we certainly don't want to spend billions for the pleasure of handing over militarily sensitive sovereign territory to an ally of China. Let's get reaction now from Talk's international editor, Isabel Oakeshott. Good morning, Isabel.
Good morning. Well, this is a really important exclusive from Talk. I didn't know anything about it, even though this was a reform operation. It was kept extremely tight. And as you reported just now, it appears that this symbolic operation is now well underway, and that these British Chagosians will not be leaving unless they are dragged off. And I assume that they have gone out with a photographer, somebody who's videoing it all, and I think that will make very, very powerful footage. There was never a reason for Keir Starmer to do this, and I am convinced that there are backhanders involved here, not of Keir Starmer personally, but certainly of some of those who have been pushing this case so hard. You know, when you don't understand something, there's always that expression, follow the money.
Yeah.
There is no logical reason why this administration keeps on pushing, not just to give away our sovereign territory, but for the UK to pay to give away its sovereign territory. There can only be one logical explanation here. More than one person, and whether it's on the Mauritius side, the UK side, the legal side, more than one person is going to get very, very rich out of this dirty deal.
Do you think that this plan to give away the Chagos Islands is now dead in the water?
I don't. I mean, I'd like to think that it was dead in the water, but we know there have been many twists and turns in this story so far, and the US president has not been consistent on it at all. Disappointingly, he took an extremely long time to come out with anything that was clearly anti the giveaway of the Chagos Islands, and then doesn't entirely appear to be following through. I think those of us that are appalled by what is happening here were quite heartened when all of a sudden, around the time of the Davos meeting a few weeks ago, the Trump administration came out with some pretty strong words that made it sound like they were going to stop this deal. But since then, it appears to have faded a bit. You know, it's a very classic Trump, I'm afraid, a bit like him saying help is on the way to those poor Iranian people who were taken to the streets, taking their own lives in their hands, and they were heartened when the US president said help is on its way. And shockingly, reprehensibly, frankly, unforgivably, help was not on its way. And I know we're changing the subject here, but from where I sit, I'm literally sitting out looking over the Arabian Sea. Iran is very, very near where I am, and I cannot help thinking every single day there are executions going on of young people, teenagers in many cases, and the world seems to have moved on, and it should not have done.
Yes, and there are no left-wing activists doing weekly marches to defend the people of Iran who are being murdered for daring to protest the regime, Isabel. I wonder why they're so deafening in their silence. And on this Chagos deal, it's very possible that there is a military exemption, which means we could keep the islands, and it's very possible that the House of Commons was misled about the availability of that exemption.
Well, it sounds, in a sense, anything that can be used to change the position here. But I've never believed that there was an overwhelming legal case for the islands to be given away in the first place. You know, the discovery of a new clause takes sort of accepts the premise that the existing argument withstands scrutiny,
right,
which I don't think it does. You know, I don't accept that the reasons that have been given for the surrender of these islands were convincing, compelling, and necessary. So I don't actually think we need any extra evidence, but, you know, let's take what we can get.
And notably, Reform UK have been sponsoring these British Chagossians who are back on their home island.
Yes, so as your segment earlier, which I was fascinated to hear, reported that the former Tory MP Adam Holloway, who has a military background, I think if I heard correctly, he has accompanied these Chagossians out to the islands. Now, I assume they're not actually on Diego Garcia. There's more to the islands than just that military base. I think they might get short shrift if they literally landed at the military site. The Americans might not be too pleased. But this just seems to be a very exciting development in the story. And again, I don't want to just sound the trumpet for reform. Do you know what? I'd say this if this was a Tory operation or whoever it was. But, you know, this is the stuff of powerful opposition. You know, not only yesterday we had the extraordinary development thanks to the legal case that was going to be brought against this government of the elections being put back on. You know, the plan to cancel the elections has had to be abandoned thanks to the legal case brought by Reform. And today again, we've got a Reform-backed operation to highlight the travesty that is this island surrender. This is what opposition should do. Let's not forget the official opposition is the Conservative Party, but they are being absolutely left standing by a very small group of Reform MPs and their imaginative and creative operation, which seems to be leading the way.
Well, similarly, left standing when it comes to Labour's plans to cancel elections in May, local elections. Well, of course, a successful legal action on the part of Reform UK has led to the government's 15th or 16th U-turn, depending on who you ask. Is this a big moment for Nigel Farage?
Well, it absolutely is, because I think Reform felt deprived of what they expect to be a big victory in those polls in May. Reform wants to be able to demonstrate that it can win councils up and down the country. And there was an absolute correlation, as Nigel Farage presents it, between the areas in which the elections were cancelled and areas in which Reform is polling very strongly. So he's asked for this, he's won it, he's secured this overturn. You know, the government has caved on this one. And now the pressure will be on for Reform to perform very well in those elections. Of course, it would be mortifying, wouldn't it, to have campaigned for the reinstatement of the elections and then not to perform well. But there is every reason to expect that Nigel Farage's party will do extremely well in those polls.
Well, I think it's more than a feather in the cap of Nigel Farage that he's forced this government U-turn. And that was because of a bold decision to sue the government. He's been successful. Is that enough to move the dial in Gorton and Denton?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think the dial is quite far towards Reform there anyway. I haven't been to Gorton and Denton. I haven't sort of smelt the air, you know, felt what it's like, listened to the mood music there. That is an important test for Nigel Farage's party. You know, he effectively brought a candidate in who hasn't been living in the area recently. Matthew Goodwin does absolutely have very credible origins in that constituency, but there's always a bit of a risk associated with bringing in someone who may be perceived to be a London candidate. And yet Matthew Goodwin works tremendously hard. I think he's running a very energetic campaign, and I think he'll do very well. But I don't think anyone would say it's in the bag. You know, by-elections are really funny things. And they can turn on a dime.
So you think it's likely that Reform will win, but not guaranteed?
As I say, I've not been up there, and I really don't want to sort of start speculating, nor do I want to sound like a reform mouthpiece when it comes to either that election or anything else. I'm going to step back from it and say, on the face of it, I know Matthew Goodwin very well. He's a very serious candidate. He's working tremendously hard. And if you look at the opposition, the Labour Party, well, I mean, Labour isn't even working, as we know from this morning's shocking unemployment figures. They've shot up. No surprise. If you make it tremendously expensive and onerous to hire people, well, guess what? You're going to be dishing out less jobs if you're an employer.
Sadly so. We will mention all of the candidates at the Gorton and Denton by-election at the end of this interview. What about the small matter of 11 a.m, Isabel, and the announcement of the unofficial shadow cabinet, the Reform UK shadow cabinet? First of all, what do you make of the fact that it isn't able to be called a shadow cabinet?
Well, who cares? I mean, people can call it what they like. At this point, I think pretty much everyone can accept that Reform is the unofficial opposition. So I think people will probably see these announcements today as the unofficial shadow cabinet. And who really cares whether it technically can be called a shadow cabinet or not? The reality is that Nigel Farage's party at the moment is making all the running.
And what do we think is going to happen? It's being tipped that Robert Jenrick, the Tory defector, will get Shadow Chancellor.
Well, I would expect Nigel to announce probably 3 or 4 big jobs. And I would expect those jobs not to be entirely shaped as people have always done things in the past. Reform is going to have to govern differently. People want Reform to govern differently. At the same time, Reform does not have enough MPs to create a full shadow cabinet at the moment. So I think there will be a few surprises today in the small print, if you like, and people should listen out for that rather than just focus on the headline announcements.
Do you think that the Reform UK originals should be at the front of the queue for the top jobs?
What I think is that it is immensely important that all the Reform MPs, whether or not they are the original ones, the new ones, they must work as a team. It will be totally fatal to this project if you've got a kind of split between the new ones, the Tory defectors, if you like, and the original core team. But what I would add to that is that Nigel has worked with some members of the core team for a very, very long time. And loyalty is a very important thing in politics, and understanding where the party has come from and how it has got to where it is as valuable as ministerial experience. And that is why I think that the team that Nigel is trying to build will combine both of those things in a very effective way.
And briefly, if you can, Isabel, what about the perceived Achilles heel of the economic agenda, the affordability of Reform UK's programme? Have they got to be careful to not be seen as a party that's fiscally reckless? The idea that, as one Tory, ex-Tory MP, Mark Jenkinson, told me, that Reform are, modern-day crypto-socialists. Is that a weak spot, and have they got to address it? Have Reform UK got to sort out that spreadsheet, dot their I's and cross their T's?
Well, all parties have to be mindful of that. Of course they do. And we're 3 years out from an election. It's impossible, as you put it, to sort that spreadsheet out, because the factors that play into how much money we do or don't have as a nation are changing by the week, by the month, even by the day. As unemployment rises, the economy flatlines, we don't know where we're going to be in 3 years' time as a country, but all the indices point to the balance sheet being in a lot worse shape than it is now, to more borrowing from this very profligate government. And Reform, of course, they've got to be sensible about how they fund their promises.
The numbers have to add up. There's a perception at the moment they don't, Isabel.
From who, Mark? Who has that perception?
The Conservatives, who have outlined 50 billion,
Oh, of course
50
they
billion
do.
quid's
What
worth of
else are they
savings.
going to say? What else are they going to say, Mark?
They've got 50 billion.
Those are great numbers.
They're going to cut the welfare state by 50 billion. Why can't Reform support that policy?
Well, Reform is entirely planning to cut the welfare state quite dramatically. Of course it is. This is absolutely at the heart of Reform's agenda, is slashing the welfare state and actually making people better off rather than just parroting the word growth and never actually achieving any.
Isabel, fantastic to see you. We'll catch up soon. My grateful thanks for your time. Isabel Oakeshott, Talk's international editor, dropping plenty of truth bombs there. Damning thoughts from Isabel Oakeshott on the Chagos Islands situation. And by the way, quite right from Paul in Wiltshire, who says, good morning, Mark. Can you stop calling it the Chagos Islands sell-off? It's not a sell-off. The British taxpayer is getting nothing back. It is a giveaway. Paul, you're so right about that. OK, candidates for the Gorton and Denton by-election. Nick Buckley, Advance UK. Charlotte Cadden, Conservatives. Dan Clark, Libertarian Party. Matt Goodwin, Reform UK. Sebastian Moore, SDP, Social Democratic Party. Joseph Omicha, Rejoin EU. Jackie Piercy, Lib Dems. Hannah Spencer, Greens. Angeliki Stoja, Labour. Hugo Wills, Communist League, and Sir Oinkalot, Monster Raving Looney Party. So much more to come. You are listening to Talk Breakfast. Next up, a Labour voice on the show who's going to deal with the breaking news that unemployment has gone up and that there may be some kind of legal basis to keep the Chagos Islands. That's next.
This is the Political Asylum, current affairs, international news, letting criminals off while sending... Oi! Oi! You shut up! I'm trying to record something.
Stand by for 3 powerhouse hours of breaking news, challenging views.
I don't give a flying damn about international law. I think people will viscerally reject this.
We're with you every weekday night, Monday to Friday, 7 until 10 p.m, right here on Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
You are listening to Talk Breakfast 9:26, and joining us live on the show right now is the Labour MP for Blackley and Middleton South, Graham Stringer. Good morning, Graham.
Good morning.
Graham, an unfortunate headline. UK unemployment hits its highest rate in nearly 5 years, rising to 5.2% in the 3 months to December. Hardly the party of working people.
It's a tragedy when people are unemployed and there aren't jobs for them to go to. I think the original problem within this government, of course, unemployment has been rising for 5 years, so it's not just under Labour that it's been rising. But the first budget that the Chancellor put forward, she originally proposed some changes to welfare that most Labour MPs thought were unacceptable. They weren't thought through. They were passing on the burden of the budget to disabled people by and large. But the government then gave in. And having said that changing the benefit system was a moral imperative, have announced that there won't be any changes this year. And what I think, the clue is in the title of my party, is that we should be working hard, and sometimes it means spending money up front to change the benefit system so that we get people back into work. So I think it's a disgrace, really, that what was a moral imperative we have now cast to one side. So we're very keen that we change that policy.
I completely agree with you. Of course, pressure on those backbenches against the government's much-needed reforms to, in particular, the scope of disability benefits. With you all the way on that one, Graham. I can't imagine that if you were in Cabinet, you'd have signed off on those two budgets, which involve policies that have made life harder for businesses, an increase in the minimum wage, which plenty of financial experts have said has frozen young people out of the jobs market, the national insurance tax raid, which has made it harder for businesses to employ people. There are lots of layoffs happening. And then, of course, the red tape and the workers' rights package, which may be well-intentioned, but again, lead to unemployment. That's the problem, isn't it? It's the policies that have got us where we are today.
Well, it's not just the policies. I don't want to repeat the first point. It's getting people back into work. But you're right. That putting... increasing tax by 75 billion, which is a lot of money even for governments, is completely against the Labour manifesto.
Yeah.
And I've got a brewery that's 200 years old in the constituency, one on the edge of the constituency, which is 175 years old. They've been hit by the family inheritance tax, very similar to farmers.
Yeah.
They both run pubs, and they're being hit right, left and centre. And it's often the pathway back into employment for people, getting a few hours a week behind a bar, getting structure back into the life if people have been unemployed. So it's bad news all round.
Most definitely. And then, of course, I don't want to depress you further, Graham, but we've got this court case, this legal action on the part of Reform UK has been very successful. The government have scrapped their plans to cancel a number of local elections in May. This is an incredibly humiliating defeat for the Prime Minister, isn't it?
I said on the floor of the House of Commons when it was introduced that elections were going to be cancelled. It was embarrassing. I don't expect, when there's a Labour government, to agree with every policy. Nobody does, you know, it's a difficult issue. But I don't expect to be embarrassed. How can anybody justify cancelling elections, particularly when there's controversy around changing the structure of councils? People want to campaign on that, for and against, or something else. We shouldn't be cancelling elections. And I think in this case, when it appears that the legal advice on which this was based was so fragile, the first sniff of getting into court, they backed down at some cost again to the taxpayer. I think heads should roll on this. The Attorney General is responsible for legal advice. What was he doing? They're not going to share the legal advice because governments never do, of whatever colour. But somebody has to take responsibility for an acutely embarrassing fiasco.
Most definitely. Graham, you are a principled politician and ideologically consistent. You're one of those MPs that's in politics for the right reasons, not naked ambition. Do you not think it would be the right thing now to leave the Labour Party and exist as an independent or join Reform UK?
No, I'm not going to do either of those things.
That would be the right thing to do, wouldn't it?
No, it wouldn't. I stood for election. and won for the 8th time as a Labour candidate. I think people who change their political party, and I've always thought this even when people have joined Labour from other parties, they should stand for re-election. On the ballot paper is my name and the Labour Party candidate underneath it. If I suddenly was to become another political party, I would have conned the electorate. So
there's no problem. I mean, here's the solution, Graham. You defect to Reform UK or stand as an independent in a by-election. Labour love by-elections.
I take it you're not serious.
Well, the bottom line is that, you know, people really respect you, Graham, because you're principled. You're a true Labour man, I understand that. But this isn't a true Labour government. Their manifesto was a tissue of lies. So you'd be entitled to disown this administration. It's not really a Labour government.
I am entitled to stay in the Labour Party and argue for a change of policy to the sort of policies that when I joined the Labour Party a long time ago, I joined for those reasons. I still have those reasons. And U-turns, incidentally, are a good thing if you get the policy wrong. What is wrong are the mistakes that are made, one after the other, that have to be corrected. And the government say one day we are absolutely committed to keeping the two-child benefit rule, and then we haven't any money, and then they change it. They're making fools out of ministers and loyal backbench MPs. So I'm going to stay in the Labour Party and fight. I still think, and you would probably disagree with this, the best chance over a period of time for a fairer society is the Labour Party, but we are not doing very well at the moment.
And look, I do hope that this government can deliver a fairer society. That is a goal, Graham, that you and I share. But the way we're not going to do that is to clobber businesses, because that kills growth, and tax wealth creators who are leaving the country in their droves. The concern I've got, Graham, I understand you want to stay in Labour, you're a loyal man, you want to fight the good fight, no problem with that. The issue you've got is, if Starmer goes, which I suspect is inevitable, his replacement will be ideologically even further away from where you are right now.
You don't know that, and I don't know that.
Well, I do, because those backbenchers are very left-wing, and the party membership are on the left as well. A lot of them like the Green Party, and they'll be looking at a soft Labour figure, someone like Angela Rayner or Ed Miliband, and what will they do? They'll put taxes up and increase welfare.
When it comes to choosing a leader of the Labour Party, and I think this probably applies to all parties, party members have their own views, which I agree with you, tend to be to the left of a Labour administration, always have been. Or they choose to vote for somebody they can think can win an election. And when it came to Tony Blair, I think the party was always uneasy with Tony Blair, but they decided they wanted a Labour government which they disagreed with, rather than a Conservative government at the time. So I don't think you're right saying it would be one of those two candidates.
Okay.
I put the choice of candidates into three categories. The people whose names appear in the newspapers, most of which have flaws and difficulties getting selected. Either a safe pair of hands, and there are perhaps 2 or 3 safe pairs of hands in the cabinet, or somebody with a stellar career before they came into politics who's been recently elected, who may wish to have a go as a brand new candidate and a fresh face with an analysis of what's going on, I would hope similar to mine, and an effective way of dealing with that.
Yes, Graham, look, I'm conscious of your time and I don't want to impose upon you any further, but would you be led as to your preferred options to replace the Prime Minister? Are we looking at a Shabana Mahmood or a Wes Streeting?
If it came to a choice, I'd hope, as the name's in the paper, I'd almost certainly vote for Shabana. But there are a safe pair of hands in the cabinet. John Healey is a name that is beginning to appear in the papers. And there are people who've had a really good career before. So I'm not going to sort of be restricted now. One of the problems with the debates around candidates is none of them are saying what they would do. And maybe it's too early for them. They're just names with a certain record. And I want the kind of debate we're having about what's gone wrong with the party. I want any potential candidates to engage with that and say what they would do to improve the employment situation and to improve the economy.
And Graham, we found a point of agreement. A, we want a fairer society. We agreed on that. The other point of agreement, I absolutely believe, at 39 minutes past 9 in the morning, that Shabana Mahmood would be a better Prime Minister. I agree with you. She's a formidable politician. I don't share all of her politics. She would do a better job. Briefly, if you can, do you think Starmer's done now? Is it if not when he goes?
Yes.
Yeah. And that's going to be after May. We're looking at a new Prime Minister in late summer, probably, would you say?
I think so. I mean, predictions are a fool's game, really. But if Labour loses the by-election, I don't think that will be a crisis point. I think the crisis point will be if the local government elections and the elections in Wales and Scotland go extremely badly for the Labour Party.
Graham, we always love having you on the show. Thank you so much for your valuable time. Graham Stringer is the Labour MP for Blackley and Middleton South. Fascinating conversation. So much more to come. It is 9:38. This is Talk Breakfast.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, I enjoyed having Graham Stringer on the show. He's a Labour MP that talks a lot of sense, but Andy's not happy. He said, "Good morning, Mark. Graham Stringer still managed to blame everyone else apart from his party for wrecking the economy and killing the jobs market." Andy, listen, do you know something? You're entitled to your view. I'm not sure that's fair on Graham. I think that Graham did acknowledge that first budget, for example, really impacted hospitality, but I appreciate your thoughts. Keep those opinions coming. Starmer, is that it now? Is he done? Is it over? I would say so. I think the fat lady, Christian, hasn't just sung, right? She's in the back of a taxi on her way home. This is a voice note from Big Darren.
Good morning, Mark. It's Darren here. I can't wait for Prime Minister's questions. He's going to be torn anew. You know what's it. Keep up the good work. Talk is the channel for common sense. I love it.
Well, Darren, I appreciate that so much. There is no talk without you. With our viewers and our listeners, thank you so much for your support, and we will keep on fighting the good fight. Now, with me in the studio reacting to the big stories of the day, I'm delighted to welcome William Yarwood, Media Campaigns Manager at the Taxpayers Alliance. Good morning, William.
Morning, Mark. How are you, mate?
I'm very well indeed. So busy today. A day of breaking news. Down the line, also joining us, Head of Local Government Delivery at Reform UK, Ben Bradley. And Ben Bradley, I suspect congratulations are in order. Your boss, Nigel Farage, decided to sue the government for cancelling local elections in May. And he's won.
It's a huge victory for people, and it should never have been in question, should it really? There's only Reform that stood up to the government on this. Labour, Conservative, Lib Dem councils all quite happy to cancel their local elections where they run councils. But we've applied that pressure and we've won. 4.6 million people will get to have a say, and that's a huge moment, I think, for Labour and the government and Keir Starmer, as well as for reform in the country.
Was there any argument on the part of the government that actually these administrations would be short-lived, zombie administrations, a waste of taxpayers' money and everyone's time and resource?
Councils are busy. We know that they are under pressure. They're under more pressure now that the government's taken away 4-6 weeks of their preparation time for these elections illegally. So they are going to be under more pressure. But actually, all of these councils are in a position where they are taxing us every year, where they are planning to raise council tax this year, and you can't have that taxation without having a say and having a vote in what it means and what you support or don't support. So it's a vital plank of our democracy. The government have made that pressure worse on councils who have now got to deliver these at short notice.
Well, I agree. Even if, William Yarwood, they're spending our money for a week or even a day, we should be electing them.
Absolutely. I mean, Ben actually touched on something very important there, which is the concept of no taxation without representation. And we at the Taxpayers Alliance have been running a campaign over the last few weeks, going on the ground, basically leafleting and door knocking to say to people to write to their local council leader, not just to actually call the elections, but also 27 out of the 29 councils that had cancelled their council elections were also going to raise council tax. So they're going to raise council tax overall by about £120 million across these 27 councils, and yet the local people did not have a vote for it. So I'm glad they've moved back on this, but actually we need to go a bit further than this, and I actually implore Reform and Ben to do this. I think there needs to be a new piece of legislation which says that if any election is cancelled in future, then powers must be brought in to make sure that those councils are not allowed to raise council tax, because, like I said, there should be no taxation without representation.
And, Ben, how has it come this far that the government have been forced to throw the towel in that close to the legal action actually kicking off? Weren't they advised by lawyers that this decision to cancel elections was likely illegal? Why did they push this through and push it so close to the wire, do you think?
To ask them, I can only assume that it's because they were really concerned about what these elections are going to look like for them as a party across the country, because, as you've pointed out, it shouldn't even be in question. This is a democratic right. It's a fixed set of elections on a fixed time frame. And we've seen, the argument about, is it only going to be for a year? They said last year when they delayed elections, and it's not ready and they're delaying them again. This government hasn't got a great record on delivering the things it promises at the time it promises them. So who's to say what elections will or will not take place next year?
Yeah, do you think that that Labour this administration were consciously willing to break the law in order to save themselves political embarrassment? Would you go that far, Ben?
Well, it seems to me that they were certainly willing to push the boundary as far as they possibly could. Now, they've obviously had some pretty direct legal advice in the last few days about how embarrassing it would be to lose in court to Reform later on this week. Clearly, what they've been told is that this is not legally viable. That raises questions about the decision makers at the top of government and how they've let it go this far.
Stay with us if you can, Ben Bradley. William Yarwood, you exist to worry about taxpayers' money.
I do indeed.
And make sure that it's carefully spent. Not really the fault of Reform UK, but it is my viewers and listeners that will pick up the legal costs of Reform UK's legal action. I've been told it's going to be sort of six figures, potentially $250,000 or $350,000. Why are my viewers and listeners paying?
Well, because the government decided to cancel the elections, and of course Reform decided to put a challenge in, and when the government loses a case, the government then has to pay the legal costs of whoever it was. And look, this is not Reform's fault. I'm not blaming Reform for this at all. I agree with Ben, actually. This should never have got to this place in the first place. It's the same with how, to sort of change the story a little bit, same with how we're going to have to possibly pay for Trump suing of the BBC, because of course the BBC lied about President Trump and actually changed elements of their programming to make it seem like he was advocating for something that he wasn't. That's not Trump's fault. That's actually not taxpayers' fault either. That's the BBC's fault for forcing those costs onto the average licence fee payer. So look, no, it's not great. I would prefer all of this to never happen. I'm sure Ben and Reform would prefer for this never to happen anyway. But yeah, that's something that the government is going to have to deal with. Like Ben said, the legal cost they're going to have to pay is about 150 odd grand, about 200 grand. But you know what? It's just going to have to happen. And that's just the way it is, I'm afraid. It's depressing, but it's true.
Ben, my viewers and listeners, none too happy about picking up the bill for this original decision by Labour to scrap the elections. It's not the fault of Reform UK. They've served our democracy with this legal action. But who do you think should be paying the legal costs?
We should go and ask the Labour Party to pay for it, shouldn't we, really? I think the fact that it has been allowed to get this far is a travesty. The fact that, they're always the first to point fingers at reform, aren't they, in particular about the nature of the party and the policies, whilst cancelling jury trials, whilst scrapping elections, and doing all the kinds of things that you would expect from fascist or third world and dictator-led governments around the world. We should not be in this position. Taxpayers should not have been put in this position. And councils shouldn't have been put in this position where actually they are now within kind of 4 weeks having to prepare for elections at very short notice. It was all entirely unnecessary, and all because the Labour Party are deeply concerned about being wiped out in 12, 15 weeks' time.
Most definitely. Ben, while we've got you, in a Talk Breakfast exclusive, it's been revealed that a number of British Chagossians have landed back on the islands. They're now refusing to leave. Their flights, I understand, were paid for by Reform UK. What more do you know about this, and what is the end goal?
I work in the local government team, so I'm not going to pretend I know any more about it than you do. I wouldn't want to guess, but clearly huge political pressure around government around the Chagos deal as well, the worst deal in history. And I'm not at all surprised that both Chagossians themselves and obviously Reform and our very clear stance on this issue are similarly campaigning hard to put that right.
Yes, most definitely. What do you think about this giveaway of the Chagos Islands? Do you think it can be halted, Ben?
Can be halted. Certainly the states have got a role to play in that. Perhaps there will be some last-minute legal advice, Mark, that comes along and sorts them out for another U-turn. But it was a question that was never being asked by anybody, and I don't understand why they've come up with an answer to a question that just wasn't on the table. It's going to be hugely expensive and hugely damaging to the reputation of Britain around the world. Another massive mistake from a Labour government that just isn't fit for purpose.
Ben, I enjoyed your company this morning. Do join us again in the near future. A fascinating conversation. Ben Bradley there, Head of Local Government Delivery at Reform UK. Meanwhile, William Yarwood, we've got breaking news that UK unemployment has hit its highest rate for nearly 5 years. Yep. There's a surprise.
Yeah, what a surprise. Who knew that taxing areas of the economy who actually provide employment and growth is actually going to cause unemployment? What a surprise. Also, I think within those statistics, there's stuff about youth unemployment also being the worst it's been in quite a long time. And again, when you're putting more regulations on businesses, when you're increasing minimum wages to the point where there's no point hiring young workers, when you're increasing employers' national insurance, which, by the way, Mark, is a tax on working people, as we've seen by the fact that these unemployment figures
Because if you tax the guy that's employing you, you're taxing yourself.
Exactly. And also you're making it harder and more expensive to hire people. So I'm not even remotely surprised by the unemployment figures. And then also you add into the fact that I think we have a sort of growing culture of welfare dependency in this country, wherein lots of people are actually seeing the choice between working hard and actually going on the welfare state. And a lot of people think, well, actually, there's a better deal here, I'm just going to go live off the state. And unfortunately, that's a line that many people have taken, and that's going to be contributing to the overall unemployment figures.
Are we being deeply unfair on this Labour government? Is it a bit bizarre to say that they've wrecked the country in 18 months? Is this not a legacy of 14 years of Tory rule, the growth in the cult of welfarism, in my humble opinion, the COVID overreaction, wokery in our public institutions, poor investment in the military, antisocial behaviour, NHS waiting lists? Is it wrong to frame all of this as Labour's fault?
Yeah, it is wrong to frame it as all Labour's fault. There's certainly things that Labour have done which have not helped the situation in any way. I mean, I point to two of Reeves's tax-raising budgets, which is, of course, the second one. She said she wasn't going to raise taxes in any way. But if you talk about welfare, I'm so glad you mentioned the COVID point, because that's a key point here. There was an article by Sam Ashworth-Hayes in The Telegraph quite a while ago which explained how COVID changed the average British relationship with the welfare state, in the sense that people previously, there was sort of a stigma around using it, and then post-COVID, after, during COVID, they saw what they could get from it, and then after COVID, they decided, oh, well, I don't really want to give up what I've just been getting from the welfare state, so I'm just going to continue claiming and claiming and claiming. And that's why things such as, mild anxiety and depression and things that are serious, don't get me wrong, while those things are now climbing up in the overall welfare recipients. I mean, we at the TPA did a little bit of research that showed how from 2019-20, so just more or less just before the pandemic, there were maybe about 40,000 odd people in the UK claiming for the enhanced rate of PIP for anxiety and depression. And then you go to 24-25, and you're looking at over 120,000.
We've got a few seconds. Are we headed towards some kind of financial event, a crash potentially in the next 2 or 3 years before the election?
I'm not too hopeful for the prospects of the economy. Growth is flatlining, taxes are too high. We have an exodus of people, young entrepreneurs and wealth creators leaving the country, and also we're placing even a larger burden on a very, very squeezed middle class in this country.
Borrowing costs going up.
Borrowing costs are huge.
We're going to have a new Prime Minister that, I disagree with Graham, will be more left-wing than Keir Starmer.
Yes, that's also quite a terrifying prospect, especially if you're worried about energy bills. Imagine if you get Ed Miliband.
No, his replacement's not going to fix the roof, are they?
No, of course not. Of course not. So, yeah, I'm not particularly hopeful. I'm not particularly hopeful at all.
Yikes. All right, well, listen, we're delighted that you came in the studio. Come back and see us soon. You always talk a lot of sense. William Yarwood, media campaigner at the Taxpayers Alliance, which is non-political, by the way. They just want a sensible tax burden that pays for doctors and soldiers and the police and all that, but which is sustainable and fosters economic growth. Because I'm afraid it's only national income that gets us out of this. It is 9:52. Your call's next. It's Talk Breakfast.
Join me, Ian Collins, every weekday from 1.
My 12-year-old. Obviously, he won't be 12 then, he'll be 16, but if he's anything like he is now, he shouldn't be anywhere near an election booth. Do you sympathise with him? Is he the victim of the 24-hour news cycle we just spoke of?
I think his failings are internal. He's useless, incompetent, has no political judgment.
Everything you need to know. All the breaking news right here on Talk.
Weekday afternoons from 1 o'clock. Only at the home of common sense.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Common sense is monopolised by you, the viewers and listeners, to Talk. Can you hear me all right? Are we all good? Yes, we are. Folks, it's 9:54. This is Talk Breakfast, and here's a voice note on Reform UK and Phil.
Talk. Good morning, Mark. Phil from Hertfordshire. Future Reform voters have to realise this. Labour are going to leave this country in a mess. Absolute mess. It's going to take time for Reform to sort it out. It's probably going to take a couple of terms in Parliament. So therefore, we have to be patient. We have to accept it's going to be hard. There's going to be some tough decisions to be made.
Well, I agree with you, Phil, and I think that if Reform are going to win, they must manage expectations, think big, change the country for the better, but it's going to take a while. I mean, I personally think what they will need, or any administration, I don't care who does it, but anyone that stops the boats and scraps net zero and sorts the economy out, it's going to take a big majority, and it's going to take 10 years. Because that's how long it took Margaret Thatcher to rescue the United Kingdom. Let's take a call. I've got Elliot in Bushy. Good morning, Elliot.
Oh, hi. Brilliant programme. We've spoken before, Mark. Very, very quickly.
Thank you, Elliot.
Extremely important to emphasise. I can't emphasise it enough. I believe, and I'm a great supporter of the monarchy, I believe, given what Andrew Lowney said earlier in your programme, there is a major cover-up here. This means not only the king, the royal family, the great reverence we had for the Queen. This is dynamically terrible. This implies the civil service. It implies security officers. It implies, as regards Andrew's activities, trade envoy, diplomats. I believe the
butlers,
police are
chefs,
not doing
cooks,
what they should do.
Yeah.
And where is the king? Is head of the Church of England. Where is the church on this? This impinges not only on our own country, but the fabric. As head of the Church of England, head of our constitution, the monarchy is head of the Commonwealth. What does it mean for our dependent states? To me, in order to make absolutely clear that the monarchy does not want anything to do with Charles's brother, he will have to drag him screaming to the courts. And in my view, unfortunately, and I am a supporter of the monarchy, Charles will have to abdicate and get rid of the whole nonsense and get William in charge.
Wow. Elliot, I wish we had longer. You've put everything, I think, into words. Elliot in Bushy there, reacting to allegations by Andrew Lowney, the man whose book entitled was The Beginning of the End for Andrew. What he said is that these sex trafficking allegations and also misconduct potentially in public office could be criminal offences, and there could be a royal cover-up which could see Charles step down from the throne. Live in the studio at 10 a.m. is Julia Hartley-Brewer. Hello,
Very
Julia.
good morning. Really interesting that. I mean, again, this is the thing. We were talking to Di Davies, former Royal Protection, head of that division, and he says, he thinks there's been a cover-up right to the very top, involving the late Queen and involving the current King. And I'm sorry, no one is above the law. Technically, legally speaking, the King or the Queen is above the law, but I'm not sure they should be. But there we are. But obviously, the focus today, let's be honest, it's all about that. And is it the 14th or the 15th U-turn? That's what I can't work out. Who knows? It's another U-turn by a Prime Minister who 2 hours earlier said there wouldn't be another U-turn over these local elections. I don't believe they did get new legal advice. I don't think they ever thought this was legal. It was just gerrymandering, trying to fix the vote. And it's absolutely outrageous. And we're going to pay an extra 63 million quid as a result.
It is wild. Willing to break the law to preserve their